Chapter 476. At this moment, two people were standing on top of a mountain a few hundred miles south of Cloud Sky City. They had been watching the two fierce and tragic battles that had taken place in front of Cloud Sky City. Young Master's revenge has failed. Cloud Sky City's morale has reached the sky. The man in black sighed. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Who would have thought that Yang Dingtian could actually trigger the lightning in the sky and kill the last 400 golden eagles? Otherwise, the 400 golden eagles would have killed at least tens of thousands of people and taught Cloud Sky City a painful lesson. Yes, he triggered the lightning. The man in white said, "This Yang Dingtian is really shocking." The scene just now not only stunned everyone in Cloud Sky City, but the two observers of evil ways were also completely shocked. Yang Dingtian's demon sky splitter triggered the lightning in the sky and turned hundreds of golden eagles into ashes. That scene was really shocking. However, even though there are regrets, we still got what we wanted. The man in white said, although the battle just now was shocking and intense, it also proved two things. First, Yang Dingtian did go to Fisher City to ask for help. Second, Cloud Sky City didn't get the demon vulture army. Fisher City only gave Yang Dingtian a demon vulture as a token. That's right. The man in black nodded. Okay, we can go and reply to the Lord. Cloud Sky City doesn't have the demon vulture army and only has about 1,000 demon dragon army left. They are no match for our demon army. Even if the East, West, and North armies don't arrive in time on the day of the final battle, we can easily crush Cloud Sky City with just our demon army. After that, the two of them flew into the sky and headed south. Yang Dingtian, the demon vulture king, is dying, Zhu Hongxue said. In this battle, the demon vulture king's strength and pride touched Zhu Hongxue the most. He even felt that he was a little as arrogant as the demon vulture king. Even if he had to become the enemy of the entire Yinyang school, he would still fight evil to the end. Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue desperately supported the demon vulture king, preventing it from falling to its death. But at this time, the demon vulture king was on the verge of death. He was only half a step away from death. With Song Chuanhua's help, Yang Dingtian quickly arrived in front of the demon vulture king. After landing, the demon vulture king looked even bigger. Just its head alone was bigger and taller than Yang Dingtian's body. However, the wounds on its body were a ghastly sight. 90% of his body had been torn apart. There were at least 10,000 wounds all over his body. The golden eagle's claws, beak, and the golden eagle warrior's sword all brought fatal injuries to it. The scales, which were originally as hard as iron, were almost completely peeled off. The scars on his body were only a few inches long. It was so deep that it went straight into the bones. Even the internal organs in the stomach could be seen. As for the two wings that possessed boundless destructive power, they were now filled with countless cracks. The sharp bone spurs at the edge of the wings were completely shattered. The wounds all over his body made Yang Dingtian and the others tremble when they saw it. If a person had suffered such serious injuries, they would have died many times over. But the demon vulture king was still holding on to its last trace of life. It wanted to look at the sky in peace and leave quietly. Because they would always belong to the sky. Yang Dingtian reached out and wanted to stroke the demon vulture king's head. The dying demon vulture king shrank back slightly, but did not let Yang Dingtian touch it. When it was in good condition and strong, it did not care about Yang Dingtian's touch. But now that it was weak and about to die, it felt that this touch was sympathy. As the demon vulture king, it could not stand sympathy. Even if it died, it would die with pride. "Buddy, I won't let you die." Yang Dingtian smiled. Then, he took out a handful of holy water pills from his arms. Qin Huayu was stunned. At that time, from the secret realm, Yang Dingtian stole a lot of holy water. But after using it on a large scale, there was not much left now. The demon vulture king's body was huge. It was not something that could be saved with 1 or 2 or 3 pills. Yang Dingtian placed the holy water pills in front of the demon vulture king. The demon vulture king looked at Yang Dingtian slightly, as if hesitating. Then, it stretched out its tongue and rolled all the pills into its stomach. A moment later, the demon vulture king's body shook and looked at Yang Dingtian in disbelief. Qin Huayu, Zhu Hongxue, you guys carry the demon vulture king back to the city. Yang Dingtian said. Yes. Qin Huayu said. At this moment. Suddenly, a winged cavalry quickly flew from the direction of Cloud Sky City. As he flew, he blew the golden whistle and shouted, "Enemy attack, enemy attack." Then, Yang Dingtian quickly saw a string of beacons igniting quickly. Song Chunhua and the others' faces changed completely. This meant that there was a place in Cloud Sky City. Cloud Sky City was a place with almost no defenses. There were only a few dozen winged cavalry. Of course, there were also hundreds of young disciples of Cloud Sky City. The rest of the people were almost all sent to the city wall. At this time, Cloud Sky City was extremely fragile. And Cloud Sky Castle was more than 200 miles away from the city wall. Although the beacons were fast, it took at least a few minutes for the message to reach 200 miles away. The enemy might have already rushed into Cloud Sky City. Yang Dingtian and Song Chunhua looked at each other, their eyes revealing a look of horror. Cloud Sky City had just experienced 2 bloody and fierce battles and had achieved brilliant victories. But it could not withstand a third battle. Especially the battle that happened in Cloud Sky City, the consequences were unimaginable. Summoning the demonic dragon mount. Song Chunhua was slightly stunned. There was only half of the demonic dragon mount left, and it was full of scars. Now, it needed to recuperate. If they fought again, there might be a danger of being completely wiped out, or even more injuries on top of injuries. However, Song Chunhua only hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, "Yes." Qin Huayu came over and said, "Sect Master, do you want to send the 3rd Demonic Dragon Regiment?" The Demonic Dragon Army under Yang Dingtian had a total of more than 3,000 people and was divided into 3 regiments. The 1st and 2nd regiments were the 2,000 demonic dragon warriors that Yang Dingtian had sent to attack Sky Thunder City. Last night, they had lost more than 100 people. Today, after fighting with the 2,000 demon wolf demonic knights, they had lost nearly half of their numbers. Now, there were only 1,000 left. The 3rd regiment was sent to the Abyss Castle in the west to prevent the Western Army from passing through. "No, it's too far. We won't make it in time." "Send the 1st and 2nd regiments," Yang Dingtian said. "Yes." Qin Huayu shouted. After a while, Yang Dingtian and the others, who had almost exhausted their celestial qi, led the 1,000 injured demonic dragon army and quickly rushed into Cloud Sky City. Along the way, blood dripped from their bodies. Even the demonic dragon army's speed was much slower. Behind the demonic dragon army, a total of 5,000 cavalrymen followed closely and quickly rushed towards Cloud Sky City. After nearly an hour, Yang Dingtian and the others arrived at Cloud Sky Castle. The entire Cloud Sky Castle was completely surrounded. More than 1,000 demonic dragon army soldiers had completely surrounded Cloud Sky City. Yang Dingtian was shocked. Previously, at the Poison Extension Strait, when the earthquake and tsunami happened, Yang Dingtian was high up in the sky and saw many demonic dragon army soldiers escaping the earthquake and tsunami at lightning speed. However, Yang Dingtian could clearly see that the demonic dragon army on the southern shore of the Poison Extension Strait were all rushing towards the west. It looked like they were going to take a detour around the land bridge and pass through the northwest Qin City territory to return to the World Guild. Why did they suddenly surround Cloud Sky City? At this moment, within Cloud Sky City, regardless of whether they were old or young, they were all equipped and ready for battle. Yang Dingtian saw Madame Shimen, Yan Yan, and Qin Jiaojiao standing at the top of Cloud Sky City with their swords in hand. The remaining young disciples of Cloud Sky City all stood on top of the city walls and prepared for battle. When Yang Dingtian led 1,000 demonic dragon army soldiers to arrive, the World Guild demonic dragon army that surrounded the city saw Yang Dingtian's wounded former comrade. Their gazes trembled and their expressions became complicated. When Song Chunhua saw that it was the World Guild demonic dragon army that surrounded the city, she immediately felt relieved. She then became angry and said, "What are you doing? Not only are you helping the tyrant, but you are also attacking the old, young, and women." The commander of the World Guild's 5th demonic dragon army avoided Song Chunhua's gaze unnaturally. The demonic dragon army had a total of 5 regiments and 3 reserve regiments. The commander of the 5th regiment had the most complicated relationship with Song Lihua. He was the son of the World Guild's most powerful duke. He did not choose to inherit his father's territory. Instead, because he was infatuated with Song Lihua, he entered the World Guild and became the commander of the demonic dragon army. He was not a direct descendant of Song Chunhua. Because of his relationship with Song Lihua, he was quite hostile towards Yang Dingtian. "City Lord Yang Dingtian, come out and speak," the commander of the demonic dragon army's 5th regiment shouted. Yang Dingtian rode on the demonic dragon mount. His face was pale and his celestial chi was exhausted. He looked a little weak and said, "If you have anything to say, please say it." The 5th commander said, "At this moment, 500 miles north of Cloud Heaven City, on the southern shore of the Poison Strait, tens of thousands of our brothers have been poisoned by the seawater. They are on the verge of death. You must immediately send people to save them. Otherwise, I will immediately attack the city and perish together with you." The 5th commander could lose in battle, but not in battle. Even if it was to save people, he had to use a threatening attitude. Yang Dingtian smiled and said, "All right, I promise you." Ah! He did not expect Yang Dingtian to agree so readily. The 5th commander was stunned. He originally wanted to say more threatening words, but he immediately swallowed them back down. "Chunhua, prepare big baskets. The ones we will use to transport the injured in the future." "The more, the better," Yang Dingtian said. "Yes," Song Chunhua said. In just 2 hours, tens of thousands of baskets appeared in the plaza in front of Cloud Heaven City. Yang Dingtian said, "Every demonic dragon, take 5 baskets and rush to the Poison Strait at the fastest speed." "Yes." The 1,000 demonic dragon army behind Yang Dingtian shouted. Almost every one of them was injured and needed to recuperate. "And all of you, go together," Yang Dingtian said to the 5th commander. "Yes, oh, okay," the 5th commander said. After a while, the 2,500 demonic dragon army rushed towards the back of the mountain. Facing the steep hills, it was as if they were walking on flat ground. They quickly rushed towards the Poison Strait in the north. "Yang Dingtian, we will remember that you agreed to save our brothers. However, don't even think about taking over our 1,500 demonic dragon army. We still have to return to the World Society," the 5th commander said. You think too much," Yang Dingtian said calmly. 2 hours later, Yang Dingtian and the 2,500 demonic dragon army arrived at the Poison Strait. Although he had seen it from the sky, when he was here, Yang Dingtian still felt as if he was in hell. At this moment, the poisonous green seawater had all dried up. It had either seeped into the ground or flowed back into the sea. The ground within 100 miles was filled with deep and terrifying cracks. Of course, there were even more corpses. It was really densely packed. There were too many to count. At this moment, it had been 4 to 6 hours since the 5th group of the demonic dragon army left. The World Society warriors who were originally wailing and struggling had now become corpses. Countless corpses were strewn all over the cracked ground. Yang Dingtian felt a wave of sadness in his heart. That's right. Seeing so many lives destroyed, he felt sad. However, he didn't feel any guilt. These people were indirectly killed by him alone. He felt sad, but he definitely didn't feel guilty. Even if he was given 10 more chances, he would still do the same. Moreover, to be honest, even if young Ding Tian didn't detonate the crystal at the bottom of the sea, in at most 2 to 3 days, the bottom of the sea would still explode. There would be earthquakes and tsunamis. By then, most of the World Society army would have crossed the sea and reached the southern shore. At that time, even more people would die. It wouldn't be tens of thousands, but 300 to 400,000. The demonic dragon army's fifth group of demonic dragon army dismounted from their mounts and wept silently. The 1,000 demonic dragon army members that young Ding Tian brought were sad because these people who died were also their brothers. However, they rode on their mounts and didn't move at all. The fifth group's commander rushed to the first group and the second group's commander and shouted, "These people were once your brothers. Now that they are dead, don't you even have a drop of tear? Can't you even get off your mounts and observe a moment of silence?" The first group's commander and the second group's commander remained on their mounts and said indifferently, "Apologies. Before they died, they were still our enemies. If I remember correctly, you guys crossed the sea to attack Cloud Heaven City. Shedding tears for the enemy? We aren't that naive." The second group's commander said coldly, "Our first and second groups just lost half of our brothers, but we didn't shed a single tear. It seems like the demonic dragon army that was brought up by the aristocrats is really pretentious." The demonic dragon army had 5 commanders. The most elite first, second, and third group's commanders were all commoners. They relied on crazy cultivation, battle achievements, and cultivation to become commanders. The fourth and fifth groups were the direct disciples of the World Society and the son of the most powerful marquis. Therefore, the fourth and fifth groups were also ridiculed as aristocratic groups. They were looked down upon by the first, second, and third groups. Therefore, only the first, second, and third groups followed young Ding Tian to the south. Immediately, the fifth group's commander trembled in anger. Yang Ding Tian looked at the corpses on the ground and ordered indifferently, "Everyone, get off your mounts and check every single one of them. Those who are dead, gather them and burn them. Those who are alive, put them into baskets and bring them back to Cloud Heaven City for treatment." Yes. 1,000 demonic dragon warriors got off their mounts and began to carry out Yang Ding Tian's orders. They carefully checked if each person was dead or alive, but they definitely didn't touch their bodies directly. 4 hours later, Yang Ding Tian received the report. A total of 57,000 corpses were found. 19,000 injured people. Yang Ding Tian's eyes suddenly narrowed. There were a total of 150,000 people who crossed the Poison Strait. At this moment, there were only 70 to 80,000 people who were alive and dead. In other words, half of them had completely disappeared. Of course, this so-called disappearance was only the disappearance of the dead. They fell into the crevices or were swept into the sea. More than 10,000 people who were still alive were placed in 10,000 huge baskets and hung on the demonic dragon mounts. Every demonic dragon mount had to carry 4 baskets. Including the riders, they carried 9 people in total, which was more than 1,000 pounds. However, this bit of weight was nothing to the demonic dragon. The demonic dragon's own body was a few thousand pounds. The weight it could carry was even more than its own weight. "Return to the city," Yang Ding Tian ordered. 2,500 demonic dragon warriors carried nearly 20,000 injured people and quickly rushed back to Cloud Heaven City. He waited for everyone to leave. A few hundred meters away, a fire arrow suddenly shot over and directly hit the huge pile of corpses. In an instant, the mountain-like pile of corpses burned fiercely. Flames shot up to the sky and thick smoke rose. All the demonic dragon warriors carried the injured and quickly ran south. No one turned back. The fourth and fifth groups of the demonic dragon army wanted to turn back. However, when they saw the cold faces of the first and second groups, they gritted their teeth and ran with their heads down. After being poisoned by the ecstasy river, it wasn't easy to save them. It wasn't difficult to save them. At least Cloud Heaven City had enough medicinal herbs. Of course, most of them were brought over by Qin Mengli. However, these medicinal herbs were very precious. Cloud Heaven City was about to face a great war and there might be huge casualties. The most important thing was whether it was worth it to use medicinal herbs and elixirs on these former enemies. In the end, it was Yang Dingtian who made the decision. Save them. Then, the medical team that Cloud Heaven City had already organized, a few thousand people, began to quickly save them. Then, countless elixirs, medicinal herbs, and treasures were used up like water. Sect Master. When Yang Dingtian closed his eyes to recover his celestial qi, Qin Huayu walked in. Yes, what's the matter? Yang Dingtian asked. Qin Huayu said, our demonic dragon army has suffered huge losses. Now, the fifth group of World Society's demonic dragon army is all here. Half of the fourth group is also here. There are a total of 1,500 demonic dragon warriors, which is just enough to make up for our losses. I have understood that these 1,500 demonic dragon warriors are full of respect and worship for the first and second groups. It is completely possible for them to be persuaded to join us. The only obstacle is the noble officers led by the fifth commander, Lu Hengxi. As long as we eliminate them or put them under house arrest, we can take these 1,500 demonic dragon army soldiers into our nightmare. Yang Dingtian said, I once understood this Lu Hengxi. He is the son of the World Society's most powerful duke. Because he was infatuated with Song Lihua, he gave up his inheritance rights and came to the World Society to be a mere commander of the demonic dragon army. This person is proud, conceited, and has a high temperament. I also heard that when the first, second, and third groups came together to discuss and decided that the World Society would follow me to the south. Because we didn't look for him, Lu Hengxi, he flew into a rage and felt that he was humiliated. Qin Huayu said, Then you mean to let Lihua persuade him? When did you use this honorific? Yang Dingtian said with a smile, as long as Song Lihua is mentioned, your brain will instantly short-circuit. When did I want to let Song Lihua use a honey trap? This isn't just an insult to Lihua, it is also an insult to Lu Hengxi. I believe in this person. Afterward, Yang Dingtian continued to close his eyes and recover his mystic qi. 4 hours later, the fifth commander of the World Society's demonic dragon army requested to see Yang Dingtian. I am here to bid farewell. Lu Hengxi said straightforwardly. Oh. Alright, if you need anything, go and find Mu Liancheng. Yang Dingtian said, after the injured members of the World Society are treated, I will let them leave. Lu Hengxi couldn't hold it in anymore and said, Are you not going to keep us? Are you so hypocritical? You obviously want to keep us, but you want to let us leave. I saw through you immediately. Yang Dingtian said with a smile, I am not scheming. Many people can easily see through me. Of course, I want to keep you, but I respect all of your choices. Someone even advised me to let Song Lihua persuade you and guarantee that you will stay, right? Immediately, Lu Hengxi's face flushed red and became very unnatural. Song Lihua was his Achilles heel. Once this name was mentioned, all of his aura would vanish completely. Have you gone to see Song Lihua? Yang Dingtian asked. Lu Hengxi nodded even more unnaturally. He had secretly gone to see her. Even though Song Lihua had just taken a bath and regained some of her human appearance. That haggard and emaciated appearance had given Lu Hengxi an incomparable shock. Where did the fairies of the past go? Where did the beauties of the past go? However, Lu Hengxi wasn't relieved. He was shocked in his heart. What kind of power could cause Song Lihua to become like this? You can go and see her, but don't think too much. She is already Qin Huayu's fiancée. The two of them are very loving. Yang Dingtian said with a smile, you also know Song Lihua. Once she has decided, no one can change her mind. You have no hope. Lu Hangxi's face darkened and he said, I know. Then, Lu Hangxi said, that's right. As long as Song Lihua comes and says a word to me, even without saying, as long as she looks at me, I will stay. Why don't you let her come? Don't you want my 1,500 demon dragon warriors? Of course I want them. I want them even in my dreams. Yang Dingtian said, but I want to stay. I want to stay wholeheartedly. My heart is not with Cloud Sky City, not with justice. Not to mention 1,500, even if it's 15,000 demon dragon warriors, I don't want them. I told Qin Huayu that if I let Song Lihua use a honey trap, not only would it be an insult to her, but it would also be an insult to you. I respect you and believe in you, so I won't humiliate you, even if you leave because of this. Lu Hangxi's body trembled slightly. Then, he took off his helmet and knelt down on one knee. This was, of course, an expression of loyalty. However, he was conceited and prideful. When one knee touched the ground, he immediately got up and turned to leave. He promised to stay and pledge his loyalty to the justice that Yang Dingtian represented. But he didn't want to stay for another minute. He felt that this was very awkward and made him feel very unnatural. Yang Dingtian smiled helplessly and eagerly. She was also a proud and innocent person. In the following time, an incomparably busy scene appeared on the Cloud Sky City wall again. Countless people were frantically building the last section of the city wall. Of course, at this time, the city wall was only 12 miles long. There was no need for tens of millions of people. So, the remaining hundreds of thousands of people joined the reinforcement project of the city wall. Yang Dingtian had already seen that the high mountains on both sides of the city wall had been cut in half. Countless huge stone strips had been chopped down to build the city wall. This was also necessary. The mountains on both sides could be used as natural city walls. The next day, Yang Dingtian and the others had all recovered their Xian Qi. What surprised him the most was that the Demon Vulture King's recovery speed was too amazing. With an astonishing amount of holy water elixir, the terrible injuries on its body had gradually healed, although it was still shocking. But there were no more deep scars to the bone. Of course, its combat strength had not fully recovered, only less than half. But Yang Dingtian still decided to ride it into battle. According to the report of the scouts, hundreds of suspension bridges had already been built in the abyss in the west. The hundreds of thousands of troops of the Western Army had already gathered 100 miles west of the abyss. They would soon cross the bridge and enter the territory of Cloud Sky City. Now, Yang Dingtian was going to lead the Demon Dragon Army to destroy these pontoon bridges. As the ace of the Air Force, the Demon Vulture King was still indispensable. But, if nothing unexpected happened, this battle would be very, very easy. The cunning Qin Wanqiu would definitely cooperate and put on a good show. After destroying the pontoon bridges, Yang Dingtian's strategy of attacking 3 and letting go of 1 would be completed successfully. The Eastern Army led by the Divine Weapons Villa was stuck in Sky Thunder City and couldn't arrive in time. The World Society in the north was wiped out by the tsunami. Song Shao vomited blood and fainted. It was even more impossible for them to go south. The Western Army was led by the cunning Qin Wanqiu. As long as Yang Dingtian destroyed the pontoon bridges, the hundreds of thousands of troops would have a reason to not cross over. The only ones that could reach the city were the hundreds of thousands of troops of the Southern Army. These hundreds of thousands of troops were, of course, the most powerful of the 4 armies. But Yang Dingtian now had 3,500 troops of the Demon Dragon Army, 1,000 troops of the Demon Vulture Army, and an astronomical number of secret weapons. He also had the highest secret trump card, Dongfang Minmi. Yang Dingtian still had great confidence in this battle. It could be said that this battle was definitely a battle that would shock the world for Yang Dingtian and Cloud Sky City. It was a battle that would completely change the power of the Tiando League and the confidence of the chaotic world. All of Yang Dingtian's efforts and sacrifices during this period of time were all for this battle. The first battle between good and evil. It could also be considered the final battle between Yang Dingtian, Ning Wuming, and Qin Chiqi. After destroying the pontoon bridges in the abyss and stopping the 500,000 troops of the Western Army from advancing east, the strategy of attacking 3 and letting go of 1 would be completed. In this battle, Yang Dingtian had already won half of it. Just as Yang Dingtian was riding on the demon vulture dynasty and flying towards the west. Suddenly, a graceful figure flew over from the western sky. It was a floating ray. On top of it was a beautiful pregnant woman with a big belly. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but be angry and laugh at the same time. You damned woman, you still know to come back. Chapter 477. This time, Yang Dingtian only brought Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue to destroy the suspension bridge. Song Chunhua stayed behind to guard Cloud Sky City. At this moment, Yang Dingtian and Yao Rao were getting closer and closer. To be honest, this was Yang Dingtian's first time seeing Yao Rao in half a year. Ever since this woman helped Yang Dingtian make Qin Huayu yield, she had never appeared in front of Yang Dingtian again. Not only did she not treat Yang Dingtian as her man, but she also did not treat herself as a member of Cloud Sky City. Of course, Yang Dingtian's union with her was also very special. Even though they had a very intimate relationship and had a child together, the relationship between the two of them was more beneficial than emotional. Even though this woman was pregnant, other than her belly, the rest of her body was still extremely enchanting and gorgeous. In fact, her already gorgeous face was even more seductive now. Her beauty made people not dare to look straight at her. Vixen, as expected of a vixen. If Qin Ji saw this, she would definitely be very jealous because there was someone who was even more seductive and gorgeous than her. Yang Dingtian even felt that when Yao Rao got closer, Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue instinctively held their breaths. It was as if the air that Yao Rao breathed was filled with charm and fragrance. Seeing Yang Dingtian fiercely glare at her, Yao Rao giggled indifferently. Then, without greeting him, she directly flew past Yang Dingtian. What apology! Acting coquettishly. Just you wait. Would a vixen who was a few thousand years old feel guilty because of such a small thing? Save it. Her skin was as thick as her enchanting beauty, bottomless. She was already giving you face by coming back before the final battle. Just like that, the two of them passed by each other without greeting or speaking. Yao Rao directly flew back to Cloud Sky City while Yang Dingtian led Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue to the west. The distance of 800 li was covered in just 3 hours. Ever since Shiman Ju defected, the entire Abyss Castle had basically been abandoned. Ever since the Tiando League passed a resolution and confirmed that the Western Army would attack Cloud Sky City from the west, Cloud Sky City had been under attack. The defense of the Abyss Castle was used again. There were troops stationed there for a long time. Previously, there were a total of 500 Devil Dragon Army soldiers guarding the Abyss Castle. Yesterday, after successfully attacking the Sky Thunder City, the Northern World Society's surprise attack across the sea was also part of the plan. Therefore, the last direction, the Border Abyss, received a lot of attention. Therefore, Yang Dingtian sent another 500 Demon Dragon warriors to the Abyss Castle. Therefore, at this moment, the entire 3rd Legion's 1,000 Demon Dragon warriors were all stationed at the Abyss Castle. What's the situation? Yang Dingtian had just landed in the Abyss Castle when the 3rd Army commander, Yun Long, immediately went forward to greet him. How is Cloud Heaven City? This morning was also a day of worry for the brothers of the Abyss Castle. Even though they were 800 miles apart, everything that happened in Cloud Heaven City could not be seen or heard from here. However, as the most elite warriors, they still instinctively felt that yesterday's surprise attack on Sky Thunder City would attract the enemy's revenge. However, without orders, they could not return to Cloud Sky City. Now that they saw Yang Dingtian land, they immediately asked. The World Society's sea crossing operation has been completely destroyed. Yang Dingtian said, the enemy sent 2 waves of troops for a surprise attack. The first wave was 2,000 demon wolf demon cavalry and the second wave was 800 golden eagle army. What? The third army commander, Yunlong's expression suddenly changed. As the king of cavalry, even though Dongli was tens of thousands of miles away from the Great Plains, they vaguely knew that the demon wolf army was the overlord of cavalry in the Great Plains. The enemy sent out 2,000 demon wolf army while Cloud Heaven City only had 1,800 devil dragon army soldiers. How many of our brothers are left? Yunlong asked worriedly and sorrowfully. Of course, he was the one who understood cavalry the most. He immediately asked the key question. Our devil dragon cavalry is more tenacious and braver as they fight. The enemy's 2,000 demon wolf army was completely annihilated. The 1st Legion and 2nd Legion have about 1,000 men left, Yang Dingtian said. The 3rd commander, Yunlong's body trembled and he almost fainted. Even though he was in the 3rd Legion, the Devil Dragon Cavalry brothers in the 1st Legion and 2nd Legion were his life and death brothers. Almost 1,000 of them died in a short period of time. To him, it was completely heart-wrenching. Especially since he didn't personally fight, the pain was even more obvious. How many casualties did the enemy's 800 Golden Eagle army cause to Cloud Heaven City? Yunlong asked worriedly. A few hundred flying mounts were almost completely annihilated, Qin Huayu replied. However, the enemy's 800 Golden Eagle army were also completely annihilated. How is that possible? Yunlong said, We don't have an air force. Could it be that the earth-splitting city sent reinforcements? As the 3rd commander of the Devil Dragon Army, Yunlong still didn't know that the Demon Eagle Army had entered Cloud Heaven City. He only thought of the Demon Eagle Army's reinforcements when he saw the Demon Eagle King under Yang Dingtian. This Demon Eagle King killed 200 Golden Eagle demon beasts. The few of us worked together and killed 200. Sect Master Yang released the Demon Sky Splitter and triggered the lightning in the sky to kill the remaining 400. Qin Huayu explained in the shortest way. However, the 3rd commander Yunlong and the Devil Dragon Army's soldiers still looked at Yang Dingtian in shock. A Demon Eagle King killed 200 Golden Eagles. City Lord Yang Dingtian triggered the lightning and killed 400 Golden Eagles. How spectacular and intense was this scene? Suddenly, Yunlong and the others looked at Yang Dingtian and the Demon Eagle King with even more enthusiasm and worship. Alright, how's the situation on your side? Yang Dingtian asked. City Lord Yang, the situation is very bad. Yunlong said, in fact, I have already sent a messenger back to Cloud Heaven City to report the situation here. However, you came even faster. How is it not good? Yang Dingtian asked, did they launch a surprise attack? No, they didn't. Yunlong said, this morning, their progress suddenly sped up and they finished repairing all the hundreds of suspension bridges. Moreover, there are already more than 100,000 soldiers gathering at the other side of the suspension bridges, ready to cross the bridge at any time. So fast? Yang Dingtian said in disbelief. Didn't you destroy them? Did you just let them finish repairing the suspension bridges? Zhu Hongxue said unhappily, in the past half a month, they only built 200 to 300 suspension bridges. In just half a day, they have already repaired 100. Can they fly? During this period of time, the construction of the suspension bridges in northwest Qin City and White Cloud City had never stopped. From the beginning until now, the other side had built at least 200 to 300 suspension bridges. However, almost all of them were destroyed by Cloud Heaven City's Devil Dragon Army and fell into the magma of the abyss. The Devil Dragon Army was as fast as lightning. Once they started destroying, there was no way to stop them. Hearing Zhu Hongshua's question, Yunlong was not angry. He quietly explained, City Lord Yang, young Master Zhu. This morning, the enemy suddenly transported over 100 suspension bridges that had already been built and fixed them on the other side. Thousands of flying mounts carried hundreds of drawbridges to our side, and then fixed them in place as quickly as possible. In less than an hour, the 100 suspension bridges were all repaired. Everyone immediately clicked their tongues. As expected of the wealthy northwest Qin city, they could use such a large force. The abyss at the border was at least a few thousand meters long. The construction of the suspension bridges required extremely light and tough materials. The cost of each suspension bridge was astronomical. In the past half a month, northwest Qin city had already destroyed 200 to 300 suspension bridges. This time, they actually built 100 of them at once and used thousands of flying mounts to build them all at once. This was something that even Cloud Heaven City, who had made a fortune, could not do. Even if they built 100 of them at once, you could still launch a surprise attack and destroy them. Zhu Hongxue said, "I don't believe that the speed of the enemy's construction is faster than our speed of destruction." Yun Long said, "Young Master Zhu, I also wanted to give the order to destroy the suspension bridges. However, the situation did not allow us to take action. At least, I do not have the authority to send troops to destroy the suspension bridges because I cannot bear the loss of the army." The few of them immediately fell silent. Yang Dingtian's pupils shrank. Even the Devil Dragon Legion did not dare to send troops to destroy the suspension bridges. How many terrifying forces were guarding the two sides of the suspension bridges? "Let's go and take a look," Yang Dingtian said. "Yes." The few of them replied in unison. Then, the three of them rode on their flying mounts. Yun Long led the remaining Devil Dragon warriors in the Abyss Castle and flew towards the Abyss border. The Abyss Castle was very close to the Abyss border. They arrived in a short while. Yang Dingtian was in the air and quickly saw the situation at the Abyss border. He immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. No wonder the Devil Dragon Legion's 3rd Regiment did not dare to destroy the suspension bridges. It was not that they were not brave enough. But if they did, the consequences would be devastating. Fortunately, Yun Long did not send troops. If he really did, it would cause a huge loss to the Devil Dragon Legion's 3rd Regiment. Perhaps Yang Dingtian would really behead him in public. 100 suspension bridges spanned across both sides of the Abyss border. Each suspension bridge was a few thousand meters long and 3 meters wide. There were hundreds of suspension bridges, and each bridge was 30 meters apart. The 100 suspension bridges were a total of 5 to 6 miles long. The sky above the suspension bridges was dark and covered the sky. There were at least 2,000 to 3,000 large flying mounts. That's right, 2,000 to 3,000. They almost completely covered the sky for more than 10 miles. It was like a huge black cloud. Of course, most of these mounts were not combat mounts. They were transportation mounts. Every 3 flying mounts were fixed to each other. Then, an incomparably huge crystal crossbow was placed on the backs of the 3 flying mounts. This was because only the Divine Weapons Manor had small crystal crossbows. They were their trump cards. However, the price of these large crystal crossbows was even more terrifying. The price of each large crystal crossbow was at least tens of millions of gold coins. Cloud Sky City's Shiman Wuya did his best and only had less than 100 of them in the castle. At this moment, the northwest Qin city had actually mobilized close to 1,000 of them. Each crystal crossbow was 20 meters wide. Added to the 3 flying mounts, they formed an aerial fortress. 3,000 flying mounts and 1,000 large crystal crossbows formed 1,000 aerial turrets. They circled and protected the 100 suspension bridges below. Not only that. On the other side of the suspension bridge, at the border of the northwest Qin city's territory, there were a total of 2,000 crystal crossbows. A total of 3,000 large crystal crossbows were aimed at this side. These large crossbows were very inconvenient to move. If the demon dragons were allowed to move quickly, it should be very difficult to hit them. However, if they wanted to destroy the suspension bridge, the position was narrow, and they would become live targets. Basically, the number of crossbows that went would be destroyed. If it was a stubborn commander, 1,000 demon dragons might have been completely wiped out. The enemy's defense was not only that. At this moment, in the sky on the other side of the suspension bridge, more than a dozen top experts were sitting on flying mounts. They were eyeing Yang Dingtian's side covetously. That's right, more than a dozen top experts. Yang Dingtian once again saw his old sweetheart, Qiu Ruhan, this 3-star grandmaster. Not only that, Yang Dingtian also saw a 6-star grandmaster, the White Cloud City Lord, Yi Wucheng. Not only that, there were 4 grandmasters beside them. The 3 grandmasters of the White Cloud City were all out. On the northwest Qin City side, there was another grandmaster guarding Qiu Ruhan firmly. In total, there were 6 grandmasters and 10 revered martial artists. In addition, there were 3,000 large crystal crossbows guarding the suspension bridge. On Yang Dingtian's side, 1,000 demon dragons lined up neatly. They were 500 meters away from the suspension bridge. As long as the order was given, even if it meant death, they would instantly charge out. Yang Dingtian immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. He did not expect that Qiu Ruhan had actually returned to the northwest Qin city. Qin Wanqiu was a cunning old fox. He would not fight to the death with Yang Dingtian. However, Qiu Ruhan and Yi Wucheng hated Yang Dingtian to the bone. He did not expect that they would actually go all out to protect the suspension bridge. This time, it was troublesome. It was impossible to rely on the demon dragons to destroy the suspension bridge. Under the destructive attack of the 3,000 large crystal crossbows, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yang Dingtian, Zhu Hongxue, and Qin Huaiyu forcefully used the Xian flame to destroy the bridge. It was also impossible. The other side had 6 grandmasters and 10 revered martial artists. If Yang Dingtian and the other 2 rushed over, there was basically no way for them to survive. They had just destroyed 1 or 2 suspension bridges and were about to be killed by the other side's top experts. Could Yang Dingtian go invisible and destroy the bridge? If it was just 1 suspension bridge, it might be possible. However, to destroy 100 suspension bridges was completely impossible. In less than 10 seconds, they would be surrounded and killed by the other side. When they were completely invisible, they would not be discovered. However, once they released the Xian flame, they would be instantly exposed. There were 2 ways to destroy the suspension bridge. One was to mobilize the Demon Vulture army and destroy the crystal crossbows. They would endure the casualties and destroy the suspension bridge. The other was to mobilize their most secret weapon, their master, Dongfang Minmi. They would eliminate the other side's experts and destroy the suspension bridge. However, these 2 methods were both impossible. These 2 methods were Yang Dingtian's trump cards to win by surprise. The Southern Army, which was directly commanded by Qin Chiqi and Ning Wuming, was the most important enemy, the most fatal enemy. If they used their trump card at this time, how would they win when the time came? If Yang Dingtian had to use his trump card just to destroy 100 suspension bridges, then there was no need to fight this battle. Seeing Yang Dingtian again, Qiu Ruhan could be said to be filled with new hatred. She looked at Yang Dingtian with bone-deep hatred and absolute coldness. City Lord Yang Dingtian, I trust you have been well since we last met. Qiu Ruhan said coldly, if you have the backbone, then mobilize your demon dragon army and destroy it. I will show you what a destructive blow is. Yang Dingtian did not speak. You don't have the backbone? Then scram back and watch as my 500,000 army crosses the bridge and rendezvous with the Southern Army. Wait for my 1 million army to arrive and raze your Cloud Sky City to the ground. We will kill everyone in the city. Your wives and women will all fall into our master's lust and let them beg for death, Qiu Ruhan said viciously. Yang Dingtian still ignored her. However, Qin Huaiyu, Zhu Hongxue, and the 1,000 demon dragon army were about to explode from anger. They could not wait to charge over without caring about their lives. Everyone, listen to my orders. Qiu Ruhan suddenly flew into the air and used the blue ice ray to draw a blue line 100 meters in front of Yang Dingtian. She said sternly, as long as a single person crosses that blue line on Yang Dingtian's side, all the crystal crossbows will shoot and kill them all. All the martial masters and martial saints will attack and kill all his lackeys. Yes. Everyone shouted in unison. Immediately, all the crystal crossbows were aimed at Yang Dingtian's side. This dazzling blue line was like an incomparably huge humiliation that was deeply engraved in the hearts of Yang Dingtian's side. They did not dare to cross the line. Once they did, they would not be able to withstand the enemy's destructive blow. Bastard Yang Dingtian, either you fight or scram. Qiu Ruhan said coldly. At this moment, countless troops were gathering behind Qiu Ruhan. Moreover, the densely packed troops were already divided into 100 square formations. Once they were completely assembled, they would begin to cross the bridge and enter Cloud Sky City's territory. Once the army entered Cloud Sky City, Yang Dingtian's strategy of attacking 3 and releasing 1 would completely fail. Yang Dingtian looked at the hundreds of thousands of troops on the other side of the bridge. They were majestic and mighty, filling the sky with dust. He looked at the thousands of flying mounts in the air, covering the sky. He looked at the 3,000 crystal crossbows, releasing a destructive aura. He looked at the dozens of top-notch experts, 6 martial masters, and 10 martial saints standing in the abyss. There was no chance, no possibility of success. Could it be that all their previous efforts would be wasted? Could it be that they were going to sit and watch as the killing 3 and releasing 1 failed? It could be said that once the Western Army successfully crossed the bridge and entered Cloud Sky City's territory, there would be no reason for them to stop. No matter what, the divine weapons Villas Qiu Wanjie would lead hundreds of thousands of troops out of the Sunset Mountain Range and enter Cloud Sky City's territory. At that time, Cloud Sky City would once again face the situation of being surrounded by more than 1 million troops. Yang Dingtian's trump card was far from enough to destroy more than 1 million troops. Once the 1 million troops surrounded the city, it would be difficult for Yang Dingtian to overturn the situation. He focused his gaze and looked at the 100 suspension bridges. It was these 100 suspension bridges that could change the fate of Cloud Sky City. They had to be destroyed, but they couldn't be destroyed. No matter what, they couldn't be destroyed. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian's eyes constricted. He looked at the suspension bridge's lock and said, "Are these suspension bridge ropes made of heavenly demonic silk?" "Yes." Qin Huayu said, "Each strand of heavenly demonic silk is 3 times thinner than a strand of hair, but can support hundreds of kilograms of weight. Each suspension bridge rope is made of 500 strands of heavenly demonic silk. Each suspension bridge has 50 suspension cables." Qin Huayu's meaning was clear. Each suspension bridge could support millions of kilograms of weight. Even if thousands of troops stood on a suspension bridge, nothing would happen. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and said, "Retreat, return to the city." Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue were stunned. Then, they were filled with unwillingness. Yes. Then, the 3 of them turned and retreated. More than 1,000 devil dragon warriors turned and retreated. Incomparable humiliation, unwillingness, and anger. Ha ha ha. In the air, Qiu Ruhan's twisted laughter could be heard. "Everyone, take a look. This is the so-called mighty and unyielding Yang Dingtian, retreating with his tail between his legs. What a spineless coward, what a coward. Yang Dingtian, just you wait. 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 Not a single person, not a single blade of grass, not a single tree will be left. Your women will all suffer hellish torture. They will beg for death, but they won't be able to die." Zhu Hongxue, who was retreating in the air, was about to explode from anger. Then, he suddenly turned around and was about to fight Qiu Ruhan to the death. This was intolerable. Yang Dingtian blocked him and said, "What are you doing? Go back." Zhu Hongxue said, "I can't take it anymore. Even if I die, I have to fight." Yang Dingtian said, "Who told you to fight? Could it be that we are just going to watch them arrogantly cross the bridge and set foot on our land?" Zhu Hongxue said harshly. "Of course not." Yang Dingtian smiled and said, "Let's go back to Cloud Sky City. We'll be back in a while. Later, I'll perform a miracle for you to see. I'll let you see how effortlessly I destroy these 100 suspension bridges." Qin Huaiyu and Zhu Hongxue were shocked and said, "How is that possible? The other party had such a terrifying defense. Yang Dingtian alone could destroy 100 suspension bridges effortlessly. How was that possible?" Chapter 478. Yang Dingtian used his fastest speed to return to Cloud Sky City. Song Chunhua was doing the final defense of Cloud Sky City. When she saw Yang Dingtian return so quickly, she was filled with doubt and worry. "It's fine, continue with your work," Yang Dingtian said. Then, Yang Dingtian and the others quickly flew towards Cloud Sky City. "Qin Huaiyu, I remember that your wife loves music, right?" Yang Dingtian asked. "My wife?" Qin Huaiyu was stunned, then he blushed and nodded. "Go and call her over," Yang Dingtian said. Qin Huaiyu was stunned again. What did this have to do with music? But he immediately obeyed the order and left. Back at Cloud Sky City. At this moment, Yan Yan and Jiao Jiao felt that a big battle was coming and were desperately practicing their swordsmanship. Seeing that Yang Dingtian had returned, Yan Yan threw her sword aside and pounced on him. "Husband, that vixen Yao Rao is back. Did you see her?" Yan Yan ran over. In front of Zhu Hongxue, she was too embarrassed to throw herself into Yang Dingtian's arms. She only held on to Yang Dingtian's hand. On the other side, Qin Jiaojiao resisted the urge to pounce over and scolded, "So mushy. Yan Yan, do you know how to play the zither?" Yang Dingtian asked. Yan Yan blushed and stuck out her tongue. I don't know." "Jiao Jiao, do you know?" Yang Dingtian asked. I don't know either," Jiao Jiao said. "Yan Yan, do we have heavenly devil silk at home?" Yang Dingtian asked. "Yes, a lot, Yan Yan said. They were all sent over by that woman, Qin Mengli. "And, go and get a carriage of heavenly devil silk. Jiao Jiao, go and get all the musical instruments in the castle," Yang Dingtian said. It's not easy to help Yang Dingtian. The two little women are very excited. The heavenly devil silk was an extremely expensive material. Even though Qin Mengli did not know what use Yang Dingtian would have for it, she still prepared a lot for Yang Dingtian. At the very least, it could be used to make armor. Heavenly devil silk. It sounded like the silk of a powerful silkworm. In fact, this kind of demonic silkworm was a kind of demonic beast, about a dozen kilograms in size. It had incomparably sharp teeth and an incomparably strong stomach. It likes to devour all kinds of strange metals, especially diamond jades. However, the staple food was a very special kind of magic Latin leaf. This kind of demonic silkworm could spit out silk 3 times in 2 years after consuming a large amount of food. Of course, if it didn't spin a cocoon, it would directly spit out silk. Furthermore, only one at a time. The threads were of varying lengths. The shortest ones were only 100 meters long, while the longest ones were tens of thousands of meters long. That's right, a single thread was tens of thousands of meters long. However, a thread that was tens of thousands of meters long was very rare. Most of the heavenly devil silk was only a few thousand meters long. There were many uses for this kind of silk, but no one used it to make ropes, because it was extremely extravagant. In the past, the Northwest Qin City's suspension bridge was also made of metal chains. The biggest use of this kind of silk was to make tight soft armor. This was because this thing was not afraid of being burned by fire, cut by blades, and had an almost invulnerable effect. Of course, even the simplest heavenly devil silk soft armor was extremely expensive, at least a few million gold coins. Therefore, the northwest Qin city used the heavenly devil silk as ropes to make 100 suspension bridges at once. Yang Dingtian could only gasp in amazement at such extravagance. Yan Yan quickly found a cart of heavenly devil silk. Yang Dingtian and the others immediately got to work. Every 500 strands of heavenly devil silk were tied into a rope, and in the shortest amount of time, they made 30 ropes. Then, they fixed the 30 ropes at both ends of the main hall, and laid various light steel planks on top. They made a relatively simple model of the suspension bridge. Jiao Jiao also brought over several hundred kinds of musical instruments. Then, except for Song Chunhua, Song Lihua, and Madame Shiman all came to the main hall, opening their eyes wide, ready to watch Yang Dingtian create a miracle. Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue opened their eyes to the maximum, afraid to miss a single detail. They wanted to see what kind of miracle Yang Dingtian was going to create. Lihua, come here, sit in my seat and play various musical instruments, Yang Dingtian said. Song Lihua was startled, then nodded and said, yes. Then, she came to Yang Dingtian's position, which was about 3 to 4 meters away from the simple heavenly devil silk suspension bridge. She sat down on the chair leisurely. But what was a little funny was that she was wearing wear-resistant work clothes, and her sitting posture was that of a charming goddess, so the feeling was very harmonious. At this moment, Song Lihua couldn't help but roll her eyes at Yang Dingtian and say, City Lord, why didn't you tell me in advance that you wanted me to play the zither? I could have changed my clothes. Then, Song Lihua picked up a zither-like thing and began to play. She played very well, and the melody was extremely beautiful, with a distant ancient charm. Yang Dingtian leaned close to the suspension bridge and looked at it for a few seconds, then said, Lihua, change the song, something more intense and faster. Song Lihua immediately changed the song, which was impassioned and made one's blood boil. Yang Dingtian observed the heavenly devil silk rope for a moment, then shook his head and said, change the instrument. Song Lihua changed the instrument again. This time, it was a big guy that looked like a harp. This time, without Yang Dingtian saying anything, she played an elegant and slow song first. Song Lihua's skills were really too high. Even though everyone knew that Yang Dingtian had a serious matter to attend to, they still couldn't help but be intoxicated by Song Lihua's zither music. Just when everyone was listening to the most fascinating song, Yang Dingtian spoiled the mood and said, change it. At this moment, even Jiao Jiao couldn't help but roll her eyes at Yang Dingtian. Next, Song Lihua played a faster and more intense song. However, there was still nothing that Yang Dingtian wanted. Change the instrument, Yang Dingtian said. Next, Song Lihua changed to something similar to a set of chimes and began to ring. At first, only the chimes were ringing, but later, the throne in the hall also made a strange sound. Everyone couldn't help but be surprised. The big bell at the top of Cloud Sky City was also making a buzzing sound. Yang Dingtian was delighted. He got it. Of course, even though it wasn't the type he wanted, at least he got it. Change the instrument. Just like that, she kept changing. In the end, Song Lihua played an instrument for almost half a minute. Luckily, she was a talented woman and knew almost every instrument. Even if she didn't know how to play it, she could understand it by analogy. After almost 2 hours, Yang Dingtian still didn't get the result that he wanted. Yang Dingtian was immediately disappointed and worried. Could it really not work? If this miracle didn't work, then the bridge couldn't be destroyed. If the bridge couldn't be destroyed, then the hundreds of thousands of troops in the west would flood into Cloud Sky City's territory. Yang Dingtian's deployment and previous sacrifices would be in vain. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian opened his eyes. He came to Song Lihua's side and directly took a zither that looked like a pipa. This thing looked like a pipa, but it had 5 strings. And the body of the zither wasn't made of wood, but of a special jade. And the strings were made of a special metal. Yang Dingtian grabbed the 5-string hugging zither and immediately tore off the strings. Everyone was shocked. If they didn't know Yang Dingtian's character very well, they would have thought that he was destroying the zither to vent his anger. After ripping off the 5 metal strings, Yang Dingtian pulled the heavenly devil silk and made 5 strings by bundling them up. Then, he tied them to the 5-string zither. After he was done, Yang Dingtian handed the brand new 5-string zither with heavenly devil silk strings to Song Lihua and said, "Play it again. The more intense the better." "Yes," Song Lihua said solemnly. Then, she began to play the zither. The tune she played was the most intense apocalyptic frenzy. This song could be considered a song of the evil Tao. It had been played by the evil Tao during the previous Armageddon War. The tune was very intense, very terrifying, and directly tugged at one's heartstrings. Immersed in the rhythm of this tune, even one's heartbeat and pulse would be changed. Dang 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 dang, Song Lihua flicked her finger. Suddenly, everyone's eyebrows trembled. Because, after changing to heavenly devil silk strings, the sound became extremely high-pitched, almost to the point of no sound. The sound wasn't loud, but it seemed to pierce through one's brain. Yang Dingtian leaned in front of the suspension bridge made of heavenly devil silk rope. As Song Lihua played, suddenly, the heavenly devil silk rope in front of him jumped. "Got it! Got it! Found it, it's here, it's a success." Yang Dingtian walked over and took the zither from Song Lihua's arms. Then, he channeled his profound qi and began to play. The tune that Yang Dingtian was playing was very messy and messy. However, it became faster and faster, higher and sharper. In the beginning, one could still hear the sound of playing. Later on, when it reached the peak, it was almost impossible to hear the sound at all. It felt very uncomfortable. However, a magical miracle happened. This simulated suspension bridge actually began to shake and shake. As Yang Dingtian's speed became faster and faster, the profound qi input became greater and greater. The heavenly devil silk rope on the suspension bridge shook more and more violently. Dang 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 dang, Yang Dingtian was completely fast to the extreme. Bang 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 bang, there were bursts of loud explosions. The strings of the zither in Yang Dingtian's hands all broke. At the same time, the heavenly devil silk rope on the simulated suspension bridge also broke in an instant. In an instant, the short distance countless segments, countless heavenly devil silk scattered in the air. The entire hall instantly fell into a deathly silence. Everyone looked at Yang Dingtian as if they had seen a god or a ghost. Not only the others, even Yan Yan, Jiao Jiao, and Qin Mengli. There was also Yao Rao, who had just walked in to watch the show. How did he do it? This was really unfathomable. Jiao Jiao was even thinking, is this person still my husband? He doesn't look like it. He's not that powerful. When he licked my body or forced me to lick his body, other than being a lecher and a bastard, there was nothing special about him. How could he be so powerful? In an instant, Yang Dingtian's image in Jiao Jiao's heart became completely mysterious and unfathomable. Yao Rao originally did not think much of this human little boy, but now she could not help but be deeply stunned. To her, this was a completely unknown territory. It could probably be classified as intelligence. Intelligence could be said to be a fatal attraction to the Fox clan. Zhu Hongxue was also stunned. Then, there was a very simple sentence in his mind. No wonder he could be the boss. Yang Dingtian put down the zither and said, "Use the fastest speed to make 500 zither with the strings of the heavenly devil silk. I will write down how much heavenly devil silk is needed for each zither string. Then, go find the Devil Dragon Army and find 509-star third-class martial great masters and above. Because, the amount of profound qi needed and the speed of plucking the strings must be at least 9-star third-class martial xian. Yes. Everyone shouted in unison. The reason why Yang Dingtian destroyed the suspension bridge was very simple. It was resonance. Because when he thought of the bridge, he thought of a very famous event in Earth's history. At the beginning of the 19th century, a group of Napoleon's army, under the command of their officers, marched majestically and uniformly across a bridge in Angers, France. When they were about to reach the middle of the bridge suddenly shook violently and finally broke and collapsed, causing many soldiers and citizens to fall into the water and die. After investigation, it was found that the main culprit of this tragedy was resonance. Because when the large group of soldiers walked in unison, it produced a frequency that coincided with the natural frequency of the bridge, causing the bridge to vibrate even more. When its amplitude reached the maximum limit and exceeded the bridge's resistance, the bridge broke. There were many similar events. Compared to the sturdy iron bridge, the suspension bridge was undoubtedly even less sturdy. And although the heavenly devil silk was incomparably tough, it looked like something that was extremely easy to cause resonance. Then, what needed to be done was to find the frequency that made it resonate and make the vibration reach the limit, causing the heavenly devil silk to break. Of course, it was too difficult to make the heavenly devil silk break, but this chaotic world happened to have profound qi energy, which could increase the vibration effect by a lot. In just over an hour, the 500 special zither had been completed. Of course, most of them were just temporary modifications. The entire cloud castle had collected a few hundred. The remaining ones were not enough, so several Grandmaster-level experts used jade stones to carve them on the spot. They even used a high-grade profound fire, so of course, the speed was very fast. At the same time, 509-star martial xian warriors and above were all ready. Under the command of Yang Dingtian, they practiced dozens of times with empty hand gestures. When everything was ready, each of them held a special zither in their hands. They rode the devil dragon and sped towards the border abyss in the west at full speed. At this time, the 500,000 soldiers of the Western Legion of the Punitive Army had all gathered at the eastern border of the northwest Qin city. The 100 miles of land near the drawbridge had become an extremely huge military camp. Countless barracks bloomed on the 100 miles of land. With the arrival of the war, the people within 300 miles of the eastern border of the northwest Qin city had all been evacuated. These 300 miles of land had completely become a huge military camp. At this time, there were already 200,000 soldiers gathered at the edge of the abyss, divided into 100 formations. Each formation had 2,000 people. They were divided into 20 trips across the bridge. 100 people crossed each drawbridge at a time, so 10,000 people crossed the bridge at a time. Each trip took less than half an hour. In other words, it would take 10 hours for all the 200,000 soldiers to cross the bridge. In addition, there were other tedious preparations and large-scale supplies to cross the bridge. With a total of more than 500,000 soldiers, it would take more than 30 hours for all of them to cross the bridge. There were only 6 days left before the decisive battle on August 15th. For the Western Legion, time was very tight. After crossing the bridge, they had to rush for more than 100 miles every day without stopping to reach the Cloud Sky City on the day of the decisive battle. Of course, rushing for more than 100 miles every day was very difficult for the cold weapons soldiers of the Earth era. The infantry soldiers of the Earth era could only march for a few dozen miles every day. However, it was completely different in the chaotic world. The soldiers here were all professional martial artists, and their physiques were much higher. If they rushed at full speed, it was not impossible for them to travel 200 to 300 miles. If they were cavalry, the ordinary horses of the chaotic world had much higher endurance and speed. It was not impossible for them to travel 1,000 miles in a day. At this time, the defense of the 100 drawbridges was still very strong and impenetrable. There were still 3,000 large crystal crossbows and more than 10 top experts guarding the 100 drawbridges. Behind Qiu Ruhan, the 200,000 soldiers had all lined up and were ready to cross the bridge at any time. Previously, Yang Dingtian had retreated with his tail between his legs. Even though Qiu Ruhan had mocked him viciously, she still believed that Yang Dingtian wouldn't let this matter rest and wouldn't give up just like that. However, if she put herself in Yang Dingtian's position, she could not think of any way to destroy the drawbridges. At this time, the territory of the Cloud Sky City suddenly vibrated intensely. Then, a black shadow came to a stop like a bolt of lightning. Qiu Ruhan's beautiful eyes flashed with jealousy. The Devil Dragon army was really coveted. They could travel at a speed of more than 1,000 miles every 2 hours. It was a cavalry army that everyone dreamed of. Everyone, get ready to meet the enemy, Qiu Ruhan said coldly. As long as the enemy crosses the blue line, kill them immediately. Yes. Suddenly, everyone shouted in unison. Then, the 3,000 crystal crossbows were all aimed at the Devil Dragon army that was flying over. Yang Dingtian led the 500 Devil Dragon warriors and rushed over like a gust of wind. Then, as Yang Dingtian raised his hand, the 500 Devil Dragon warriors instantly stopped behind the blue line. This was really an ace cavalry army. They moved as fast as lightning and stopped as stone. Under the rapid speed, as long as Yang Dingtian gave the order, the 500 Devil Dragon warriors would immediately stop and become a perfectly straight line. There was not the slightest mistake. However, when she saw that the 500 Devil Dragon warriors were not holding weapons but zither, Qin Mengli was stunned. Then, she held her stomach and laughed. Yang Dingtian, did you come all this way just to find a few hundred zither to play for us when we cross the bridge? Qiu Ruhan said sarcastically, then why don't you let your wife and mother-in-law do it? The mother and daughter danced together. It will definitely make my hundreds of thousands of soldiers forget the fatigue of marching. Madame Qiu is an outstanding beauty. It is not bad for you to dance and entertain these soldiers. The one with the poisonous tongue was not Yang Dingtian, but Qin Huaiyu. Every time Qiu Ruhan spoke viciously, Yang Dingtian did not know how to retaliate. After all, she was Qin Huaiyu's mother in name, even though she and Qin Huaiyu were like enemies. Unexpectedly, it was Qin Huaiyu who retaliated viciously. Qiu Ruhan looked at Qin Huaiyu with eyes full of disdain and viciousness. She said indifferently, "What's wrong? Yang Dingtian slept with your woman and made you a cuckold. Yet, you still support him like this. With your despicable personality, you are really not worthy to be the successor of the Northwest Qin city." If it was in the past, Qin Huaiyu would probably have jumped up. However, now, he had found a place in his heart where he belonged. He trusted and understood Yang Dingtian. This kind of despicable attempt to drive a wedge between them was no longer of any use. Woman, you have no sense of shame and you still dare to bite back. Qin Huaiyu sneered and said, when you made my father a cuckold, when you sold your ass in front of Ning Wuming in evil ways in order to survive, when you served Ning Wuming together with your so-called daughter Qin Qiqi, how did you feel in your heart? Qin Huaiyu's words were extremely vicious and directly stabbed at Qiu Ruhan's most humiliating and sensitive place. She was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She said coldly to Qin Huaiyu, "You son of a bitch. Just you wait. I will make you regret saying those words. My revenge will be completely unleashed on your woman, your daughter." "Alright, Madame Qiu." Yang Dingtian said indifferently, "Let's put aside the vicious curses and attacks for now. How about we make a bet?" Qiu Ruhan's beautiful eyes turned and looked at Yang Dingtian. "Alright, what are we betting on?" We will not cross this blue line in front of us. We will not use any profound flames or profound skills. We will just stand here and not launch any attacks. I will be able to destroy your 100 suspension bridges." Yang Dingtian said. "Ha ha ha, in your dreams. Even a great grandmaster like Qin Wanchou can't do this." Qiu Ruhan sneered. "Let me finish." Yang Dingtian said, "We will not cross this blue line and not launch any attacks. If I use some unfathomable method to destroy these 100 suspension bridges, what will you do?" "In your dreams." Qiu Ruhan said, "You say it first. If you can't destroy these 100 suspension bridges, what will you do?" "You state this condition." Yang Dingtian said. "You come over, kneel in front of me, and lick the soles of my shoes. How about it?" Qiu Ruhan said coldly. It seemed that offending a woman was the most terrible thing. Previously, Yang Dingtian's abuse of Qiu Ruhan had already made her hate him to the extreme. She would not kill or beat him. She would make Yang Dingtian kneel in front of everyone and lick the soles of her shoes. This was not something that the madam of the Northwest Qin city should say. This woman was already a little hysterical. "Okay." Yang Dingtian said resolutely and decisively, "Then what if I succeed?" Qiu Ruhan said, "I will kneel in front of you and lick the soles of your shoes. How about it?" "Good." Yang Dingtian shouted, "Then, in front of several 100,000 people, make an oath." Then, in front of several 100,000 people, the two of them made the highest oath in the primal chaos continent. Next, several 100,000 people stopped all their actions and stared at Yang Dingtian. They racked their brains but still could not imagine how Yang Dingtian could destroy the suspension bridges. It was simply impossible. There were 3,000 crystal crossbows and more than a dozen top-notch experts defending. Moreover, Yang Dingtian actually said that if they did not cross the blue line, they would not launch any attacks. How was this possible? Even a god couldn't do that. Qiu Ruhan loudly ordered, "All crystal crossbows, listen to my order. As long as a single soldier from Cloud Sky City crosses the line, or as long as they launch any attacks, you will shoot with all your might." "Yes." The 3,000 large crystal crossbows shouted loudly and all the giant crossbows were raised. "Yes." The dozen top-notch experts behind Qiu Ruhan replied in unison. Then, Qiu Ruhan began to order, "Cross the bridge." Immediately, 100 rows of soldiers moved out and began to cross the bridge. Each row had 100 people, so a total of 10,000 people crossed the bridge. In fact, they could have crossed the bridge an hour ago. However, Qiu Ruhan wanted to cross the bridge in front of Yang Dingtian. She wanted Yang Dingtian to watch the army enter Cloud Sky City's territory. The 10,000 soldiers, in 100 rows, stepped in orderly steps and crossed the bridge. Yang Dingtian waved his hand. Immediately, 500 warriors of martial mystic level and above neatly picked up the heavenly devil silk zither. Clang! Yang Dingtian plucked the zither strings. Immediately, the 500 people plucked the zither strings in unison. Suddenly, an incomparably sharp and ear-piercing sound was heard. The several 100,000 soldiers furrowed their brows. Qiu Ruhan sneered, "Such an unpleasant zither sound. Are you trying to disgust my army to death?" The 10,000 soldiers were not affected and continued to cross the bridge. Yang Dingtian continued to pluck the zither strings. The speed was getting faster and faster. The amount of mystic chi input was getting higher and higher. Every second, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, 39 times. The sound was getting louder and louder, and in the end, it was completely inaudible. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, a frightening scene took place. 100 suspension bridges began to tremble violently, swaying wildly, shaking wildly. The amplitude of the shaking became greater and greater, and the frequency of the vibration became higher and higher. Later, it was impossible to walk at all. The 10,000 soldiers were all lying on the bridge, hugging each other tightly for fear of falling down. Clang 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 clang, Yang Dingtian led the 500 experts, plucking the zither strings faster and faster, faster and faster. In the end, the 500 hands completely turned into afterimages, and it was impossible to see clearly. And the sound of the zither had reached its peak, and it could not make any sound at all. The mystic chi input of the 500 people was getting higher and higher. Finally, it reached the limit that the heavenly devil silk could reach. Clang, Yang Dingtian's hand finally slashed. The 500 people's hands finally slashed. Pa, 500 neat bursting sounds. The zither strings of the 500 zither were all broken. At the same time, the strings of the 3,000 crystal crossbows were all broken in an instant. All the giant arrows flew out in a disorderly manner. Sweeping across the area, they shot countless of their own people to death. This was a complete surprise, because the strings of the crystal crossbows were also wrapped in the heavenly devil silk. The biggest and most terrifying scene was 100 suspension bridges shook to the extreme, swayed to the extreme, and then suddenly stopped. Bang! An incomparably loud sound. Then, 100 suspension bridges all collapsed, shattered into pieces, and flew into the air. A total of 100 suspension bridges, 100 ropes made of heavenly devil silk, priceless, invulnerable, and incomparably sturdy suspension bridges, instantly shattered into pieces. Suddenly, hundreds of thousands of troops, as if they had seen a ghost, as if they had seen a god, looked at Yang Dingtian. Even, including Qiu Ruhan. Chapter 479. Qiu Ruhan was not the only one who was shocked. The hundreds of thousands of soldiers behind her were shocked as well. Even the 500 demon dragon warriors beside Yang Dingtian were completely stunned. That's right, they were participants, but they had no idea what was going on. How could the 100 suspension bridges all self-destruct and shatter into pieces when they were playing the zither here? Not only that, even the strings of the 3,000 crystal crossbows instantly snapped. Everyone knew very well how strong and tough the heavenly devil silk was. It could even be said that a rope made of 500 strands of heavenly devil silk would be difficult to cut with a sharp sword. Now, it actually snapped and exploded on its own. Yang Dingtian seemed to have a pair of hands from the heavens as he personally performed this miracle. Instantly, the 500 demon dragon warriors looked at Yang Dingtian with even more admiration and respect. Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue had already seen the miracle in Cloud Sky City's main hall, but they still could not help but be shocked. The 10,000 soldiers who crossed the bridge fell directly into the abyss and were melted by the lava. However, basically no one noticed this at this time. The hundreds of thousands of soldiers behind Qiu Ruhan all stared blankly at Yang Dingtian. With regards to Yang Dingtian, their feelings were extremely complicated. Yang Dingtian rose very quickly. In just a few years, he went from an unknown person to the young leader of the entire chaotic continent. When he became the Lord of Cloud Sky City, he was already on par with Qin Huayu and the others. And in just a few months, he inexplicably became the public enemy of the world. But at the same time, his status immediately leaped above Zhu Hongxue, Song Chunhua, and the others. Regardless of whether it was positive or negative, he had almost achieved the same fame as Dongfang Bingling. Of course, the current rumors in the world were that Yang Dingtian was a spy for the evil ways and that Yang Dingtian had caused the death of Dongfang Bingling. However, there were not many real fools in the world. Almost everyone in the world half believed and half doubted this news. Of course, most people didn't care about Yang Dingtian's feelings. It's useless for you to talk to ordinary soldiers about good and evil, about the rise and fall of the world. These soldiers, these sergeants, would only listen to the orders of their superiors. They were different from the disciples of the various forces. Those martial arts disciples were free and full of ideals. Therefore, even if there were vague rumors that Yang Dingtian was righteous, they didn't care about Yang Dingtian's evil ways. If the higher-ups wanted them to attack Cloud Sky City, then they would attack. But now, after witnessing such a miraculous scene, he was shocked. Their hearts were shaken and trembling. At this moment, Yang Dingtian's image became lofty, mysterious, and invincible. This filled the hearts of the hundreds of thousands of soldiers with fear and respect for Yang Dingtian. They did not want to become enemies with him at all. A person who could do such a miraculous thing seemed to have been sent by the heavens to become enemies with him and attack him. They didn't want to do it and didn't dare to do it. Qiu Ruhan, what about the thing you promised? Qin Huaiyu sneered and broke the dead silence. That's right. Everyone suddenly woke up from their shock. Qiu Ruhan, under extreme hatred, had made an extremely vicious bet with Yang Dingtian that was not befitting of her status. Just like when Yang Dingtian successfully destroyed 100 suspension bridges, Qiu Ruhan had knelt down to lick Yang Dingtian's shoes. Now, Yang Dingtian's miraculous performance had mysteriously destroyed 100 suspension bridges. Then, Qiu Ruhan should fulfill her promise. For a moment, everyone's eyes fell on Qiu Ruhan, including the hundreds of thousands of soldiers behind her. Although they were full of fear for Qiu Ruhan, they still stared at her closely. If she really kept her end of the bet, then it would be the biggest show that everyone had ever seen. Not only all the soldiers, but even the White Cloud City Lord, Yi Wucheng, looked at her. Qiu Ruhan, as the wife of the Northwest Qin City, had great power and was arrogant and domineering. Even the White Cloud City Lord had to look up to her. At this moment, if he could see Qiu Ruhan kneeling down to lick his shoes, he would probably never forget it. For a moment, Qiu Ruhan was the focus of countless gazes. That kind of humiliation and anger almost exploded from Qiu Ruhan's body. She couldn't wait to rush over and tear Yang Dingtian into pieces. She couldn't wait to fly into the air and kill everyone present, whether they were on her side or the enemy. There was another deathly silence in the hall. No one spoke. They were all waiting for Qiu Ruhan's choice. Would she fulfill the bet, or break her promise? Of course, no one dared to make a sound. They were afraid that Qiu Ruhan would vent her anger on them. Suddenly, Qiu Ruhan smiled. Her beautiful and cold face revealed an incomparably beautiful smile. Just like some poisonous flowers, the more beautiful they were, the more poisonous they were. Yang Dingtian, do you really want to come over and kneel down to lick your shoes? You have to think carefully. Can you bear it? Qiu Ruhan smiled. It's fine if you don't fulfill the bet. Yang Dingtian smiled faintly. You have to admit in front of everyone that you represent the power of the evil ways. You work for Ning Wuming of the evil ways. In order to survive, you sold yourself to Ning Wuming. On your side, I represent justice. That's enough. Yang Dingtian gave Qiu Ruhan a choice. She could either kneel down and lick his shoes or admit that the punitive expedition was controlled by the evil ways. If she knelt down and licked his shoes, it would be Qiu Ruhan's dignity that would be destroyed. If she admitted that the punitive expedition was controlled by the evil ways and admitted that Yang Dingtian was just, it would be a devastating blow to the entire punitive expedition, or at least to the entire Western Allied forces. It was one thing to have doubts in her heart. However, it was another thing to be exposed by the supreme leader of the punitive expedition. Of course, she could also choose to turn hostile and start a massacre. The scene was silent again. Everyone was waiting for Qiu Ruhan's choice. Ha ha ha. Qiu Ruhan laughed again. This time, her laughter was even more gorgeous and moving. It was even more chilling. Isn't the choice simple? Qiu Ruhan smiled and flew over gently. She came directly in front of Yang Dingtian. Perhaps it was because of the evil energy, Qiu Ruhan's beauty at this time was even more soul-stirring than the last time he saw her. This poisonous flower bloomed even more gorgeously. It was just that this kind of beauty was frightening. Then, Qiu Ruhan looked at Yang Dingtian with a smile. Yang Dingtian, I hope you won't regret it. Of course, you will regret it. Then, she looked up at Yang Dingtian and knelt down directly. Gradually, she lay down. Her delicate body looked even more like the undulating mountains and rivers. In this way, Qiu Ruhan gradually bent down in the most exaggerated posture. Her absolutely beautiful face had been looking up at Yang Dingtian all along. She was smiling all the time, but her beautiful eyes were cold and filled with countless vicious lights. When she reached Yang Dingtian's feet, she stuck out her tongue like a poisonous snake. Then, slowly, she licked Yang Dingtian's shoes. It was not satisfying. It was like licking wonderful honey. The whole process was very slow. The whole scene was incomparably tempting. Anyone who was treated like this by a peerless beauty of noble status like Qiu Ruhan would be incomparably confused, even at the cost of their lives. Everyone thought that watching this process would be incomparably satisfying. But the fact was the complete opposite. Almost everyone felt a chill run down their spines. Whether it was Yang Dingtian who was being served, or all the onlookers. During the whole process, cold sweat broke out on their backs. Qiu Ruhan's tongue was licking Yang Dingtian's feet. But everyone seemed to feel that there was a poisonous snake's tongue licking their faces. That poisonous and cold breath made people feel the arrival of the Grim Reaper. After seeing Qiu Ruhan licking his shoes, the fear of this woman in the hearts of everyone present became even stronger. Even Qin Huayu's face changed dramatically and became deathly pale. After slowly standing up, Qiu Ruhan stretched out her cold and smooth jade hand and stroked Yang Dingtian's face. She said lightly, "Okay, satisfied. If not, I can still do it." The muscles on Yang Dingtian's face twitched slightly, but he did not make any sound. "I know that whatever I say is useless, but I hope you don't vent your madness on the innocent." Yang Dingtian said lightly. "You think too much." Qiu Ruhan chuckled, and then her delicate body floated gently. Suddenly, a blue light trajectory was drawn and flew towards the west. Qin Huayu said, "This woman is going completely crazy." Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and glanced at the hundreds of thousands of troops on the other side of the river. These 100 suspension bridges should have exhausted the resources of the northwest Qin city in a short period of time. If he wanted to build another 100 suspension bridges, it would take more than a short period of time. Furthermore, the northwest Qin city was a few thousand miles away from here. Therefore, in a short period of time, the Western Army's eastward advance had been completely cut off. Moreover, these hundreds of thousands of troops had seen Yang Dingtian's miraculous performance and Qiu Ruhan's snake-like scene. Their hearts had turned cold, and their hostility and morale had dropped by a lot. No matter how crazy Qiu Ruhan would become in the future. What kind of consequences would there be? But now, the Western Army was blocked. Yang Dingtian's strategy of attacking 3 and letting go of 1 was completely completed. The next few days should be incomparably quiet. Just like before dawn, there was incomparable darkness. Before the madness, there was absolute silence. In the next few days, they would wait for the hundreds of thousands of troops of the Southern Army to head north and attack the city. Of course, some people might say that. With the suspension bridges destroyed, the hundreds of thousands of troops of the Western Army could not cross, but the experts above the Marshal Venerable level could still fly over. These Marshal Venerables and Grandmasters could still attack Cloud Sky City. But the truth was, why did the evil ways organize 1,000,000 troops to attack Cloud Sky City? Even the Zhongzhou Expeditionary Army had sent hundreds of thousands of troops from thousands of miles away. This was a complete waste of resources. In the hands of the evil ways, destroying Cloud Sky City was easy. There was no need for 1.5 million troops. 100,000 troops were enough. Even the 20,000 troops of the Ning clan of the South Sea were enough to turn Cloud Sky City into ruins and kill everyone in Cloud Sky City. People who had this kind of thinking had overlooked the most fundamental problem. That was, the evil ways had sent out more than 1,000,000 troops, not to destroy Cloud Sky City at all. This kind of anti-aircraft artillery was used to kill mosquitoes. The only purpose was to create an image of the world besieging Cloud Sky City and the world fearing Yang Dingtian. This was because Yang Dingtian's team was currently the only force that could directly confront the evil ways. It was a flame. Extinguishing this flame was not important. What was important was to force the people of the world to take sides and send troops to attack Cloud Sky City. This was essentially a declaration of allegiance. A declaration of allegiance to the evil ways. A declaration of allegiance to justice and a declaration of allegiance to the Tiando League. Of course, the Western Army had another way to advance east. Didn't they still have 3,000 flying mounts? They could just directly transport the infantrymen over. They could transport 3,000 at a time. After half an hour, they could transport 60,000 to 70,000 people a day. In the next few days, they could also transport hundreds of thousands of troops over. Of course, it would be difficult to transport the mounts and large-scale military equipment over. Now, Yang Dingtian had destroyed the suspension bridges, giving Qin Wanchou a sufficient excuse. Whether Qin Wanchou wanted to use this excuse to delay the army's advance east was his problem. He believed that he had enough wisdom to handle this matter. Just like Qiu Wanjie in the Divine Weapons manner, his son was captured, his army was ambushed, 40,000 to 50,000 people died, and the tunnel was blocked. Could it be that the army really couldn't advance? Of course they could. If the tunnel was blocked, they could send tens of thousands of people and hundreds of experts to clear the tunnel in one day. The army could still advance west. However, Qiu Wanjie had started to bide his time. The main reason was that Qiu Wanjie and Qin Wanchou didn't want to completely sell themselves to Yang Dingtian. In their hearts, they still wanted to give Yang Dingtian a chance to prove himself. As long as there was a sufficient excuse, they would be happy not to send their troops. They were different from Song Shao from the world society. Song Shao was determined to advance south to destroy Cloud Sky City and Yang Dingtian. Therefore, he had only given up completely after his power had been dealt a devastating blow. As for Qin Wanchou and Qiu Wanjie, Yang Dingtian felt that he had a certain level of tacit understanding with them. Although Qiu Wanjie couldn't be compared to Qin Wanchou, he was still considered a hero of his generation. Their craftiness made them sit on the fence, making them unwilling to face evil ways head-on. However, it was difficult to make them completely sell themselves to Yang Dingtian. 3rd Regiment of the Devil Dragon Army, listen to my orders. Guard the Abyss Castle. However, if the enemy's Western Legion crosses the border or steps into Cloud Sky City's territory, kill them all, Yang Dingtian ordered loudly. Yes. 1,000 soldiers of the 3rd Regiment of the Devil Dragon Army shouted in unison. Let's go back. Yang Dingtian said, it's time to make the final arrangements for the final battle in a few days. Yang Dingtian turned around, and the 500 Devil Dragon Army also quickly turned around. Qin Huayu said, if we leave like this, what if they cross the border again? What if we take the flying cavalry and set up the crystal crossbow formation again? Yang Dingtian said, I believe that your father has enough wisdom to handle this matter. I believe that he and I have a faint tacit understanding. At this moment, Qiu Ruhan didn't say anything. She sat on a flying mount, abandoned the hundreds of thousands of soldiers, and flew towards the west. Immediately after, Yi Wucheng frowned, jumped on his flying mount, and flew towards the south. Yi Wucheng was dead set on following the evil ways, so he would definitely report the latest situation to Ning Wuming and Qin Qiqi. Immediately after, all the master-level and martial honorable-level experts of the Western Legion left, leaving behind the hundreds of thousands of soldiers who were temporarily without a leader. Indeed, there were no fools in this world. Yang Dingtian destroyed the 100 pontoon bridges and won a political battle. Next, the entire Western Legion's decisions would depend on Qin Wanchou. Yi Wucheng went to find Ning Wuming and Qin Qiqi, asking them to put pressure on Qin Wanchou. Qiu Ruhan directly went to the northwest Qin city and displayed her power. These actions had only one goal, and that was to make Qin Wanchou submit. Yang Dingtian had already done everything he could. Next, it would depend on Qin Wanchou, his wisdom, and his willpower. It would depend on his performance and his choice. Return to the city. Following Yang Dingtian's order, Yang Dingtian and the others, as well as the 500 Devil Dragon Legion soldiers, rushed towards Cloud Sky City like lightning. At this moment, the sky gradually darkened. At the border of the abyss, 1,000 Devil Dragon Legion's 3rd Regiment faced the abyss and looked towards the other side, eyeing covetously. As expected, there wouldn't be any battles in the next few days. There would be a few short days of peace. Then, the final battle would erupt. The final battle with the evil ways, an earth-shattering final battle that would directly change the situation of the world. The chances of winning this final battle largely depended on Qin Wanchou's willpower. Hopefully, Qin Wanchou wouldn't disappoint him. He didn't need to do anything. As long as he delayed for 1 or 2 days, the situation would basically be settled. The current situation was very clear. If the Western Legion didn't advance east, the Eastern Legion wouldn't advance west. However, once Qin Wanchou gave the order for the Western Legion to enter Cloud Sky City's territory, Qiu Wanjie's Eastern Legion would have no choice but to open up a tunnel to enter Cloud Sky City. Qin Wanchou, I've already done what I could. I hope you won't disappoint me. Yang Dingtian sped up and turned his head towards the west to take one last look. He thought in his heart. 2 hours later, Yang Dingtian and the others had already entered Cloud Sky City like lightning. At this moment, the sky was already completely dark. The outside of Cloud Sky City's city walls were still brightly lit, turning into an incomparably huge construction site. Countless people were carrying out the final construction and strengthening of the city walls. Even though there wouldn't be any battles until the final battle. Yang Dingtian still couldn't rest because he still needed to make the final modifications to Cloud Sky City's army. According to the summary of the past few days' battle experience, he needed to make the final improvements to the army's weaknesses. I'll give you a 4-hour break. You still need to rest. Take a bath when you need to. Go talk to people when you need to. Yang Dingtian said to Qin Huaiyu, Zhu Hongxue, and the others. After 4 hours, all members of the committee will come to the main hall to make the final modifications to the army and make the final deployment for the final battle. Yes. Qin Huaiyu charged towards Song Lihua like a bolt of lightning. Zhu Hongxue had nowhere to go. In the end, he flew towards the final part of the city walls. He'd better use the mystic fire to blow up the city walls. Yang Dingtian rode on the demonic dragon and sped towards Cloud Sky City. Ever since returning to Cloud Sky City, Yang Dingtian had been constantly fighting, and fighting. Not to mention sleeping or resting, he hadn't even seen Bao Bao. Taking advantage of these precious 4 hours, he went to the valley to see Bao Bao and to spend some time with his family. At this moment, Yang Dingtian really missed Bao Bao. However, at the entrance of Cloud Sky City, Yang Dingtian was blocked by a person. A stunning beauty, an extremely charming fox spirit, was riding on the back of a beautiful ray and floating at the entrance of the city. Her beautiful eyes were like flowing spring water as she looked at Yang Dingtian and said softly, "Little boy, your performance just now moved my heart. Once a fox spirit is moved, it's very scary." Chapter 480. You crazy woman, you have the nerve to say this with such a big belly, Yang Dingtian said angrily. Little man, I'm just here to tell you, not to beg you, Yao Rao said. Then, she flew over with a big belly, grabbed Yang Dingtian's neck, and flew onto the back of the beautiful ray. Damn, this woman's cultivation had improved. She was now a 6-star grandmaster. After being pregnant, she had been looking for all kinds of treasures for the baby every day. She had almost never practiced martial arts. However, she was a fox demon, and her cultivation increased just by breathing. Just like that, the dignified Cloud Sky City Lord, the leader of justice in the world, was grabbed by the neck and carried away. Yang Dingtian wanted to struggle, but he couldn't. The other party's cultivation was much higher than his. Moreover, the other party was pregnant. Yang Dingtian was afraid that if he struggled, it would hurt the baby in his belly. Then, he was snatched by Yao Rao in a cowardly manner. She got on the floating ray and flew away. "Hey, crazy fox demon, where are you going?" Yang Dingtian asked. The fox demon kissed Yang Dingtian's lips and said, "To the north, on the highest mountain. The scenery there is the best." "Hey, fox demon, don't mess around. Be careful of the baby in your belly," Yang Dingtian said desperately. Yao Rao said in a trembling voice, "Don't worry, we fox demons are not as delicate as you humans." Suddenly, Yang Dingtian's line of defense completely collapsed. 3 hours later. Yang Dingtian only had 4 hours of free time, and he had spent 1.5 hours. At this time, the fox demon closed her beautiful eyes and stroked her belly lovingly, feeling the little life inside. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but reach out and stroke her belly, feeling the little life inside. "Paw!" The fox demon slapped Yang Dingtian's hand in disgust, and then took it away. "Okay, I'm satisfied. You can go," Yao Rao said straightforwardly. Yang Dingtian was speechless. He had become the vixen's tool. "Yo! Did I accidentally hurt some little man's self-esteem?" Yao Rao chuckled. Afterward, she turned her delicate body around gracefully and kissed Yang Dingtian's lips. All right. I love you. Is that all right? You can leave now. Can you be any more perfunctory?" Yang Dingtian smiled bitterly. Even though he and this vixen were just making use of each other. However, after she became pregnant with his child, it was difficult for Yang Dingtian to be completely heartless. He was not like this vixen who had lived for almost 1,000 years. The alluring beauty rolled her eyes and stuck out her little tongue. She kissed him all the way and said, "If you don't leave now, you won't be able to leave." Yang Dingtian shuddered violently. He quickly stood up and flew in the direction of Cloud Heaven City, not daring to stay for even a moment. As he flew towards Cloud Sky City, Yang Dingtian made up his mind. Cherish your life and stay away from the 1,000-year-old vixen, in the main hall of Cloud Heaven City. If things go as expected, we will be able to see the shadow of the evil Dao army in 4 days. In 5 days, this army of several 100,000 will arrive and surround our Cloud Sky City so tightly that not even a drop of water can pass through. Yang Dingtian said, "In these 3 days, there were 3 battles. The results were brilliant, but we also discovered some problems. The most important problem is why did the Devil Dragon Army and the Demon Wolf Army suffer such a huge loss? Because the Demon Wolf Army's explosive power is stronger than the Devil Dragon Army's. The Demon Wolf Army's body is thicker and more bloodthirsty." The first commander of the Devil Dragon Army said, "However, I believe that no matter how strong the Demon Wolf Army is, the final victory will be ours." "I also believe this." Yang Dingtian said, "However, I don't want to see such casualties again. Even though our Devil Dragon Army has received reinforcements, Lu Hangxi has led 1,500 Devil Dragon warriors to join us. Even though the sacrifice is great, I still can't accept such a huge loss. We killed 2 Demon Wolf Knights and 1 Devil Dragon warrior. I can't accept this ratio. No one on the scene could accept this ratio." In other words, the Demon Wolves and Demon Knights were all wild beasts. As for the Devil Dragon warriors, they were all knights of flesh and blood. They were noble and honorable knights. Using 1 honorable knight to exchange for 2 wild beasts was not a good deal. Yang Dingtian continued asking, "Also, let me ask you. In the upcoming battle, how many Demon Wolf Army will the Evil Ways send?" The first commander said, "Sect Master, as long as they don't exceed 10,000, we can win. If the Demon Wolf Army exceeds 10,000, you can still win, but the price is almost total annihilation." Yang Dingtian said, "I can't accept this result. Furthermore, I suspect that the number of the Demon Wolf Legion might exceed 10,000. Even in the East Parting Grassland, the elite Demon Wolf Legion wouldn't exceed 20 to 30,000. It is probably impossible to send all of them to the Cloud Heaven City battlefield. However, we still have to be mentally prepared. If the enemy's demon wolf army exceeds 10,000, what should we do? Suddenly, everyone fell into silence. If the demon wolf army exceeded 10,000, then the 3,500 devil dragon army would not be able to win. Cloud Heaven City's secret weapon was not very useful against the extremely fast demon wolf army. Moreover, the tall city walls were unable to stop the demon wolf army. The devil dragon army could climb the city walls like it was flat ground, and the demon wolves could do the same. Even if only 1,000 demon wolves charged into the city, the consequences would be unimaginable. Although Yang Dingtian had many experts, once 1,000 demon wolves charged in, Yang Dingtian's experts would not be enough to save them. They could only be slaughtered by the demon wolf army. After all, these beasts were too fast. For example, once the devil dragon army charged into the enemy's formation. Even if Qin Chi had master-level experts, she would not be able to stop the slaughter of a few thousand demon dragons. In the upcoming battle, the devil dragon army will face the greatest pressure. You will have to fight the most. Yang Dingtian said, I don't want to see you all annihilated when we win. In the battle 2 days ago, you were always on the front line. Then let me ask you, is there any way to reduce the casualties? After the 3 commanders of the devil dragon army thought about it, they could not help but shake their heads. Any way, any price. Yang Dingtian said. The 3 commanders were shocked. Then, the first commander said, Sect Master, I have an idea. However, the price is too high. It is even higher than the cost of our devil dragon army. Don't say such ridiculous things. Tell me what method you have. Yang Dingtian said. The first commander said, Our devil dragon legion's weapons, shields, armor, and even the armor on our devil dragon mounts are all made of the best black devil steel. This is the pinnacle of the devil dragon legion. However, if our weapons, shields, armors, and even the armor of our demon dragon mounts are all made of bloody black gold, then our killing power will increase exponentially. As soon as these words came out, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The first commander continued, My lords, in the battle 2 days ago, it looked extremely tragic. In fact, 60% of our devil dragon army's casualties were at the moment of impact with the demon wolf army. The explosive power of the demon wolf army was too strong. As long as we are equipped with bloody black gold, I guarantee that we can win even if there are 15,000 demon wolves, let alone 10,000. Once these words were said, everyone went silent again. They all gasped. What did the first commander's words mean? It meant that they could create 3,500 bloody black gold swords, 3,500 sets of bloody black gold armor, and 3,500 armor. This method was very direct. Anyone could think of it. Once equipped, the devil dragon army could directly crush the demon wolf army. However, was it possible? Absolutely impossible. Not to mention Cloud Sky City, even the Northwest Qin City, or even the entire world's forces, would not be able to create such an astronomical amount of bloody black gold equipment. How many bloody black gold swords were there in the world? At most, there would only be a few hundred. At this moment, it was no longer a problem of money. It was a problem of bloody black gold reserves. Even if all the bloody black gold in the world were gathered, there would only be a few thousand bloody black gold swords. Therefore, the first commander's suggestion was purely theoretical. He knew that it was impossible. Yang Dingtian closed his eyes and said, Ali, how many pieces of bloody black gold do we have in total? Qin Mengli said, My husband, I have transported 70% of the bloody black gold from the West Prefecture City's auction to Cloud Sky City. There are about 29,000 pieces. Once this number was out, everyone was stunned. This number was undoubtedly an astronomical figure. Even Qin Huayu had never seen so much bloody black gold in such a short period of time. Qin Mengli was really ruthless in poaching the Northwest Qin City. Even if Cloud Sky City multiplied their assets by 10 times, they would probably not be able to afford so much bloody black gold. However, one should not be fooled by this number. If they were to use it to forge treasured swords, even supreme-grade treasured swords, there would only be enough for 300 of them. Qin Mengli's auction was the biggest business empire in the Tiando League. This amount of bloody black gold had been accumulated over several decades. It was also thanks to Qin Wanchou's magnanimity that he could turn a blind eye to such a huge amount of wealth and allow Qin Mengli to transport it over. Yang Dingtian said, "All of you also know that the sole sword in my hand was forged with 999 pieces of 10,000-year-old bloody black gold. Absolute bloody black gold content. A 10,000-year-old bloody black gold was equivalent to 10 times more than ordinary bloody black gold. After forging this soul sword, I still have about 2,000 kilograms of bloody black gold powder left. Most of this powder was used to forge 10 treasured swords. I have distributed it to the few of you here. There are about 5 swords left and a few hundred kilograms of bloody black gold powder left." Then, Yang Dingtian suddenly slammed the table and said loudly, "We will do this. We will change all our brothers in the Devil Dragon army into bloody black gold weapons and bloody black gold armor." Once these words were spoken, everyone in the Grand Hall was shocked. The few commanders in the Devil Dragon army were almost deaf and their ears were ringing. How was this possible? How big was the price to pay? Just like what the first commander of the Devil Dragon army said, the total value of all this bloody black gold could surpass 3,500 Devil Dragon warriors. Now, in order to reduce the casualties, Yang Dingtian actually wanted to use up an astronomical amount of bloody black gold. Such a crazy and big spending, not to mention Song Shao, even Qin Wanchou couldn't do it. Song Chunhua felt her body heat up. After a while, she said, But all of this added together is still not enough. At most, we can only forge a few hundred swords. Yang Dingtian said, "You all have a misconception. You think that treasured swords and armors must all be forged with bloody black gold. This is impossible. Not to mention that we don't have enough bloody black gold, we also don't have enough time to forge so many weapons and armors. We are changing the bloody black gold for the Devil Dragon army, not to increase their Xian Qi, but to make them stronger and sharper. Therefore, we only need to add a layer of bloody black gold on the surface of their weapons, armors, and armor." Once these words were spoken, everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. That's right, the black magic steel was already tough enough. As long as a layer of bloody black gold was added to the sword, and the blade of the sword was made of bloody black gold, this sword would instantly become incomparably sharp and tough. It could easily tear apart the armors of the Demon Wolf army. As for the armors, it was even simpler. They just needed to apply the layer of bloody black gold. Yang Dingtian said, "Among us, 4 have Xian flames, and 2 have heaven and earth Xian flames. Use the Xian flames to melt the bloody black gold, and then use the Xian flames to bombard it. This is the fastest and strongest forging method. It can guarantee that the bloody black gold will completely merge with the weapons and armors, forming an indestructible whole." Yes. Instantly, Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue couldn't help but say excitedly, "This way, we will have enough bloody black gold." Yang Dingtian said, "Commanders, go and prepare immediately. Change the equipment 1 regiment at a time." "Yes." The 4 Devil Dragon army commanders said excitedly. Almost everyone was so excited that their bodies were trembling. 3,500 Devil Dragon army equipped with bloody black gold weapons and armors. They didn't even dare to imagine how powerful they would be. "Go and do it now." Yang Dingtian said, "1st Regiment, 2nd Regiment, take off all your equipment. After the meeting, we will immediately enter the transformation state." "Yes." The 4 commanders excitedly left the hall. Yang Dingtian said to Qin Huayu, "I estimate that we will still have some bloody black gold left. Go to the Great Cloud Sky Mountain and find Kuei Ning. Ask them to gather all our brothers' weapons. We will transform them together. Qin Huaiyu's eyes instantly lit up. The Demon Eagle army was already so heaven-defying. Now, they were all equipped with bloody black gold. Then how powerful would their combat strength be? Furthermore, the Demon Eagle Legion was an alliance army and not his own army. Yang Dingtian was actually so generous and magnanimous. Yes! Qin Huaiyu shouted. Yang Dingtian looked at Shimen Lai and said, Big brother, how many of our secret weapons have we prepared? 2,000 and 300,000. Shimen Lai said. So many. Yang Dingtian said in disbelief. Yes, we have enough manpower. In addition, Madame Qin Mengli has brought us an almost endless supply of materials. In addition, we are using the mystic flames of the young masters. The progress is extremely fast. Shimen Lai said, in fact, if not for the fact that we already have enough, we could have made more. Enough, definitely enough. Yang Dingtian said, what about the power? How is it compared to when I left? It has increased by more than 10 times. Shimen Lai said, Madame Qin Mengli brought dozens of alchemists and did a few thousand experiments. 2 months ago, the formula was confirmed. The power is at least 10 times stronger than when you left. Good. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but look at Qin Mengli. Her contribution was really too great. She had provided an astronomical amount of materials and treasures for Cloud Sky City. Remember to keep it a secret. Don't reveal the secret weapons. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable. Yang Dingtian said. Shimen Lai said, please don't worry. One of the materials doesn't exist in this world. Everything was created according to your secret method. The creation of this material was done by my brothers who were brought here by me personally. And these brothers will never leave a certain place. Then, Shimen Lai said, the dozens of alchemists brought by Madame Qin Mengli only added various crystals and energy liquids to our finished products for experiments. They don't know anything about the secret of our finished products. That's good. Yang Dingtian said. Then, Yang Dingtian stood up and said, there are at most 5 more days before the final battle. We have already prepared everything that needs to be prepared. Then, in these 5 days, we will make the final improvements to all the war deployments. Then, we will quietly wait for the arrival of the final battle. Yes. Everyone shouted in unison. Chapter 481. In the next few days, Yang Dingtian and the others only had one thing to do. That was, the mystic fire melted the bloody black gold, the mystic fire refined the bloody black gold, and the mystic fire bombarded the bloody black gold. 4 people. 2 heaven and earth mystic fires. 2 earth mystic fires. A total of 29,000 pieces of bloody black gold were melted. According to their mystic fire level, they could refine to 1% of the purity. But considering that this was not to make a top-notch mystic chi sword, but a standard weapon. So refining to 1/10 should be enough. 29,000 pieces of bloody black gold were refined to 1/10, and there were still more than 50,000 pounds left. Then, Yang Dingtian melted 200 pounds of 10,000-year-old bloody black gold powder and put it into the 50,000 pounds of bloody black gold molten iron. Not only that, Yang Dingtian also melted a 2,000-year-old demon spirit's claw and put it into the bloody black gold molten iron. Suddenly, a strange reaction occurred. This bloody black gold molten iron began to flow with a terrifying aura. This aura, even if just getting close, had a kind of piercing energy. Of course, putting the demon spirit's claw in it was told to Yang Dingtian by Yao Rao, who returned to Cloud Sky City after enjoying it. The demon spirit's claw was actually a soul-enhancing agent forged from any sword. Even if it was only a little bit, it would have an amazing effect. Now, Yang Dingtian had already felt it. That kind of oppressive, cold aura. More than 50,000 pounds of high-purity bloody black gold mixed with molten iron cooled slightly and placed in a special cold jade groove. Yang Dingtian and the others looked at each other and nodded. Then, they waved their palms. Suddenly, 100 demon dragon warriors' swords floated in the air. Each sword weighed 100 kilograms and was more than a meter long. This sword was originally incomparably sharp and fierce, and it made people shudder with fear just looking at it. Whoosh, 4 mystic fires suddenly emerged. In an instant, these 100 swords were burned red, but they had not melted yet. Then, the 4 of them quickly cut a piece of bloody black gold from the big groove and burned it to the extreme with the mystic fire. In an instant, the bloody black gold turned into a red liquid. The mystic fire suddenly expanded. Instantly, the bloody black gold turned into countless powdery liquids and turned into bloody black gold mist. Then, the 4 of them used their mystic chi to bombard these swords with the blood black golden mist, which was mixed with mystic fire. Bang! A loud sound rang out. Ferocious flames suddenly spurted out. These 100 swords suddenly trembled violently. The bloody black gold that had been reduced to powder was actually blasted into the sword. That's right, inside. After hearing about Yang Dingtian's plan, she mercilessly said that he was stupid. Smearing it on the surface of a weapon was indeed powerful. However, when it seeped into the weapon, it was much more effective. It could almost reconstruct the weapon's bones and soul. As a result, the workload of Yang Dingtian and the others increased. Each weapon had to be fired hundreds of times. He wanted the bloody black gold particles to permeate every inch of the weapon. Then, the outermost layer was completely forged with bloody black gold alloy. Boom! 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 Yang Dingtian and the other 3's mystic fire bombarded the weapons desperately. Fortunately, this kind of bombardment didn't require much mystic chi. Otherwise, even if the 4 of them were masters, they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Now Yang Dingtian knew that Yao Rao also had a heaven and earth mystic fire. She got it hundreds of years ago. She could also participate in the weapon remodeling. But before Yang Dingtian could say anything, she had already rejected it. Of course, it wasn't because it would affect the baby. It was because she felt that this kind of work was silly and tiring. As a peerless beauty, Yao Rao didn't want to do this kind of rough work. Of course, this kind of rough work could only be done by Yang Dingtian and the others. Boom! 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 Countless loud sounds and countless bombardments. Finally, the 100 bombardments were completed. Yang Dingtian and the others stopped the mystic fire. The swords fell directly into the unfreezing water and cooled down instantly. Song Chunhua couldn't wait to step forward and pick up a sword. How is this possible? Song Chunhua exclaimed. Yang Dingtian and the other 3 went forward and couldn't help but be shocked speechless. This remodeling was too thorough. This looked completely like the bloody black gold sword. And unlike the bloody black gold sword, this sword was not only red, but also faintly permeated with a demonic black-blue color. Holding the sword in his hand, the first thing he felt was a murderous aura. That's right, it was a murderous and domineering aura. Yang Dingtian had felt this kind of aura from Mo Ling before. That kind of completely cold and murderous aura. Not to mention killing, the murderous aura of this kind of sword was enough to make the opponent tremble in fear. How sharp is it? Qin Huayu asked. Song Chunhua took a primitive black demon steel sword from the Devil Dragon army. This primitive black sword was already incomparably sharp and could cut through iron like mud. Song Chunhua raised the black demon steel sword and slashed at the remodeled sword. Clang! The sound was crisp and decisive. The primitive black sword was directly broken into 2. It was used to slash at the remodeled sword, but it broke into 2 pieces. And the remodeled sword's sharp blade was not damaged at all. and the broken part of the black sword was as smooth as a mirror. This meant that it had been cut off while it was still alive, and not broken off. Song Chunhua sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "A true bloody black gold sword is only so. After adding the 10,000-year-old bloody black gold powder and Mo Ling's claw, is it really that strong?" Qin Huayu said, "How is the Xian Qi bonus?" Song Chunhua suddenly injected Xian Qi. 38%. Song Chunhua said. Suddenly, everyone was in disbelief. 38%. The treasured swords that were dug out from the primordial world were only slightly more than 30%. A pure bloody black gold sword could only increase one's Xian Qi by 50%. This remodeled sword actually increased the Xian Qi by 38%. After a long while, Qin Huayu said, "I can't imagine how powerful the Devil Dragon army will be after completely remodeled." Yang Dingtian also said excitedly, "We will be able to see it soon." Next, the four of them worked day and night crazily remodeling weapons, armors, and the armor of the Devil Dragon mounts. They did not sleep or rest, day or night. When their Xian Qi was exhausted, they would immediately absorb Xian Qi and use the shortest amount of time to recover their Xian Qi before using the Xian fire again. Time passed day by day. The third day. Suddenly, Jiao Yao entered the incomparably hot refining room. "City Lord, the Western Army has begun to cross the border," Jiao Yao said. Yang Dingtian was startled and said, "What's going on? What happened in the northwest Qin city?" Jiao Yao looked at Qin Huayu and said, "Qin City Lord Qin Wanchou, 2 sons and 3 daughters died an unnatural death. 13 cities in Qin City's territory are experiencing a plague. 130,000 people have already died, and it is still spreading." Qin Huayu suddenly shook and looked at Jiao Yao in disbelief. He said with a trembling voice, "Who died?" Jiao Yao said, "4th son, 6th son. And 2nd daughter, 5th daughter, and 6th daughter." Qin Huayu's body trembled, and tears fell. He was not considered a good person previously. But he was definitely a good brother. His father had many children, but there were very few sons and daughters of the first wife. Most of them were born of concubines. But adding them together, there were only 11 of them. Now, he had lost half of them. Qin Jiaojiao was not sensible at all, but Qin Huayu had always doted on her. It was the same for his other brothers and sisters. No matter if they were of the direct line or the concubine line, he was very concerned about them. Even towards Qin Xiaobai, this younger brother with ulterior motives, he was more tolerant. Now, he actually lost 3 younger sisters and 2 younger brothers. It was a bone-piercing pain. Yang Dingtian was also speechless for a long time. "This is the evil Tao, unscrupulous and unscrupulous." Yang Dingtian spoke unhurriedly. After Yang Dingtian destroyed the suspension bridge, Qin Wanchou naturally delayed the army from advancing east. If Qin Wanchou did not advance east, Qiu Wanjie would not advance west. In this way, the Southern Legion became a lone army. Most importantly, Ning Wuming and Qin Chichi could not create the scene of the world besieging Yang Dingtian. Therefore, Qiu Ruhan immediately returned to the northwest Qin city. Yi Wucheng immediately went south to report to Ning Wuming and Qin Chichi. Then, Qin Wanchou's 2 sons and 3 daughters died an unnatural death. A plague broke out thousands of miles away from the northwest Qin city. In a short 2 to 3 days, hundreds of thousands of people died. This was the warning of evil ways. You, Qin Wanchou, cannot not advance east. Otherwise, you will face even greater consequences. Qin Wanchou naturally could not bear such a huge price. Therefore, after delaying for 3 days, he ordered the army to advance east. Did they ride the winged cavalry to cross the border? Yang Dingtian asked. Yes. Jiao Yao said, 3,000 winged cavalry warriors, transporting about 5,000 people each time. We have 1,000 soldiers of the Devil Dragon army there. Should we attack the Western Legion that crossed the border? Yang Dingtian slowly shook his head and said, no need. Order the 3rd Legion of the Devil Dragon army to retreat to Cloud Sky City. Retreat? Let them cross the border. Jiao Liao said in shock. Yes. Yang Dingtian said, retreat to Cloud Sky City and let them cross the border. But Jiao Liao said, you exhausted all your energy just to stop them from crossing the border. To stop the situation of millions of soldiers surrounding the city. I'm not stopping them from crossing the border, but delaying them. Yang Dingtian said, currently, we have already delayed for 3 days. It should be enough. Of course, in this way, we will be pressed for time on the day of the final battle. We have to completely destroy the Evil Wei's army in the shortest amount of time. Everyone present understood what Yang Dingtian meant. Let the Eastern and Western Legions delay the encirclement of Cloud Sky City. By the 15th day of the 8th lunar month, only the Southern Legion would reach Cloud Sky City. Yang Dingtian needed to completely destroy the Southern Legion before the Eastern and Western Legions arrived. In this way, the Eastern and Western Legions would watch from the sidelines. They might even change sides and not join the attack on Cloud Sky City. Even though Qin Wanqiu didn't send any information to Yang Dingtian, neither did Qiu Wanjie. It was as if he didn't know that his son was in Cloud Sky City. However, Yang Dingtian believed that he had a tacit understanding with these two heroes. As long as Yang Dingtian destroyed the 500,000 soldiers of the Evil Wei's before the 2 legions arrived, Qin Wanqiu and Qiu Wanjie would immediately change sides. The battle of the Western world would be set. Of course, for this tacit understanding. Qin Wanqiu lost 2 sons, 3 daughters, and hundreds of thousands of citizens. Sect Master, what if the enemy's Southern Legion doesn't attack on the 15th day? Song Chunhua said, what if Ning Wuming and Qin Qiqi wait until they meet up with the Eastern and Western Legions before attacking Cloud Sky City? What should we do then? I don't think so. Yang Dingtian said, during the Tiando League conference, it was decided that we will attack Cloud Sky City on the 15th day. It won't change. I believe in Li Ming's pride. Are you absolutely sure? Zhu Hongxue said, what if the Evil Wei's army doesn't start the final battle on the 15th and insists on meeting up with the Eastern and Western Legions? I'm not absolutely sure. Yang Dingtian said, however, there's no such thing as an absolutely certain war. A 60% chance is already worth risking everything. Then, Yang Dingtian said to Jiao Liao, go and pass down the order. Get the 3rd group of the Devil Dragon Legion to rush back and change their equipment. Also, pay attention to the Eastern Legion's Sky Thunder City. Pay special attention to the Southern Legion's Sunset Mountain Range. If there's any movement, report it immediately. Yes. Jiao Liao said and immediately left. Yang Dingtian walked in front of Qin Huayu and patted him on the shoulder. My condolences. Qin Huayu nodded. Alright, time is of the essence. Let's continue, Yang Dingtian said. Yes. Then, the 4 of them continued to bombard with the mystic fire and modify the weapons and armors. However, in everyone's hearts, there was a flame of fury, a fury that was suppressed yet soaring to the heavens. Yang Dingtian didn't expect that in this war, the first great sacrifice wasn't Cloud Sky City but Northwest Qin City. Qin Wanqiu had truly suffered a bone-piercing pain. 4 hours later, Jiao Liao came to report again. The 3rd group of the Devil Dragon Legion has already started to retreat. The Southern Legion of the Evil Wei's army in the Sunset Mountain Range has already left the mountain and is heading north. They are still 480 li away from Cloud Sky City. In the direction of the Eastern Legion, Sky Thunder City's tunnel is undergoing the final cleanup. If nothing unexpected happens, it will be cleared by tomorrow night. At that time, the 300,000 soldiers of the Eastern Legion and the 500,000 soldiers of the Central Province Expeditionary Force will all be deployed. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "Yes, understood. Pass down the order. Tell all the troops to stop training and rest, except for the necessary patrols and defenses." Jiao Liao was stunned and then nodded. "Yes." Yang Dingtian continued to order, "Tell all the members of Cloud Sky City and the War Committee to rest except for the necessary shifts." "Yes." Jiao Liao said. Yang Dingtian finally ordered, "Order all the scouts to retreat. Except for a few aerial observers, all the troops are to retreat into Cloud Sky City." Jiao Liao was shocked. Even the scouts are to retreat. Then what about the enemy's movements? Their movements won't change. Yang Dingtian said, "In 3 days, the army of the evil ways will arrive at the city and the final battle will begin. In 4 days, the million soldiers of the Eastern and Western legions will arrive. The situation won't change. We just have to wait for the battle to begin." "Yes." Jiao Liao said and then retreated. Yang Dingtian said to Qin Huayu and the others, "Let's continue and try to finish modifying all the weapons within 2 days. There is only 1 day left. Everyone should rest well and wait for the final battle." "Yes." The few of them shouted in unison. 2 hours later, the Devil Dragon Legion's 3rd Regiment rushed into Cloud Sky City like black lightning. 4 hours later, in the huge construction site outside Cloud Sky City, the hundreds of thousands of people had all disappeared. They had all retreated back into the city. 6 hours later, the tens of thousands of people who were doing the final reinforcement of the city walls all went down the city walls and entered the fortress. 8 hours later, all the patrolling cavalry, scouts, and aerial cavalry outside Cloud Sky City all retreated back into the city. Instantly, the bustling city outside Cloud Sky City, which was bustling with activity day and night, was completely silent. There was not a single soul in sight. There were only a few sentries on Cloud Sky City's city walls. Even within Cloud Sky City, it was silent. The final battle that they had been waiting for and preparing for so long was about to begin. After being afraid and worried about something for a few months, one's nerves should have become coarse and numb from fear. Countless citizens who had been tired for a few months began to bathe, change their clothes, and cook. They could finally have a good meal, sleep well, and spend a few days with their families. All the soldiers stopped their training in the fortress and the barracks. They either wrestled, polished their weapons, or played various games. Of course, if they couldn't stay idle, they could fight and kill each other. In short, the incomparably noisy Cloud Sky City suddenly quieted down at the same time. In the southern Sunset Mountain Range. The entire Sunset Mountain Range was thousands of miles long. The mountains were high and rugged, and there were only 1 or 2 places that people could pass through. In the middle of the mountain range, there was a valley that was relatively flat. Therefore, it was almost the only place where an army could pass through. The entire valley was less than 3 miles long. Originally, the valley was filled with huge trees and a river. At this moment, the dense forest was gone, and the entire river had disappeared. The undulating terrain of the entire valley was completely flattened by countless mountains. All the wild beasts and birds had fled. Here, the sound of drums shook the heavens, the earth shook, and the birds flew away in fright. Countless troops were like a tide that stretched for dozens of miles as they passed through the narrow valley. Vast and mighty, covering the sky and the earth. 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, 500,000 troops passed through the valley and headed north to Cloud Sky City. 1 day later, at night, the destroyed tunnel in Sky Thunder City was completely reopened and forcibly widened by 3 times, reaching a width of 200 meters. The Eastern Army and the Zhongzhou Expeditionary Army were like a tide as they passed through the tunnel from the east and entered Cloud Sky City in the west. The Divine Weapons Villa and its affiliated forces had 300,000 troops and the Zhongzhou Expeditionary Army had 350,000 troops. Another night passed. In the wee hours of the morning, 3,000 flying mounts continuously transported soldiers and mounts to and fro at the border abyss day and night. A full 2 days and 2 nights. The 450,000 troops of the Western Army all crossed the border. After a short rest and reorganization, they entered Cloud Sky City in the east. They were 800 miles away from Cloud Sky City. The 450,000 troops marched toward Cloud Sky City in a mighty manner. The next day, August 14th, Yang Dingtian and the other 3 used mystic fire to bombard the Demon Dragon Army day and night. They completely modified all the swords, armor, and armor of the Demon Dragon Army. They completely modified the 1,000 weapons of the Demon Vulture Army. Then, Yang Dingtian returned to the valley and reunited with Bao Bao, his wife, and his family for an entire day. Qin Huaiyu went to find Song Lihua and played Go for an entire day. Song Chunhua didn't know where to go. She couldn't be a third wheel at Song Lihua's place, and she couldn't be a third wheel at Yang Dingtian's place either. Therefore, she ran to the old troops of the Demon Dragon Army to practice martial arts. Zhu Hongxue really had nowhere to go. He walked back and forth on the city wall that was more than 100 miles long for no reason. He was deeply attached to this city wall. He was the one who had used his Xian flame to blast it apart inch by inch. He had blasted it hard. When it was mealtime, the soldiers on the city wall would send food up. One of the soldiers shouted, "Let's eat together." Then, he walked over and squatted in the middle of the soldiers. He took some food from their bowls and ate with them. After eating, he continued to walk back and forth on the city wall. Late at night, 3,000 troops of the Demon Dragon Army were dispatched to Cloud Sky City's incomparably huge underground fortress. They transported the astronomical number of secret weapons to the city wall and installed them. Then, they returned to the army camp and continued to sleep. Of course, this might be their last sleep. 15th of August. Yang Dingtian was still sleeping on the bed. This time, there was one more person. Qin Mengli finally joined in, ignoring Qin Jiaojiao's extremely unpleasant look. Then, it became 3 people bullying Qin Jiaojiao. This girl was bullied and cried again. Yan Yan couldn't bear it and teamed up with her to bully Qin Mengli. However, even if the 2 little girls worked together, they were still not a match for Qin Mengli, this vixen. Qin Jiaojiao cried again and cried even harder. Yan Yan didn't cry, but after being bullied by Qin Mengli, she didn't dare to provoke her anymore. Later on, Qin Mengli felt that this wasn't good for the team's unity, so she turned to please her 2 younger sisters. However, she had no bottom line. Even if she wanted to please them, the way she did it wasn't something the 2 girls could accept. So, under her pleasing, Yan Yan and Qin Jiaojiao cried together. Then, Qin Mengli finally cried too. Yang Dingtian was sleeping soundly. Of course, everyone else was awake. Although he was the highest leader, after making strategic decisions, he was basically the most useless person. All the matters were handled by the other members of the committee. He basically had nothing to do, so he could sleep in today. Boom, 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 boom. In the distance, deafening drum sounds could be heard. It was the human skin drum. The sound was different from others. It wasn't deafening. Instead, it drilled into one's heart, injecting the aura of death and fear into one's brain and heart. It's here. It's finally here. Yang Dingtian got up. That's right, this day had finally arrived. The day of the final battle had finally arrived. After waiting for so long and preparing for so long, this day had finally arrived. Chapter 482. Boom, boom, boom. Outside, the huge drums of the Evil Way's army could be heard. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers of the evil ways had arrived at the city. They were releasing an aura of fear and death toward Cloud Sky City. It was as if the entire Cloud Sky City had begun to tremble. Yang Dingtian got up from the bed. Outside, Mu Lianyi had already prepared the hot water. However, her expression was a little unnatural. Other than facing Yang Dingtian's body, she was also a little frightened by the sound of the drums. However, when she saw Yang Dingtian walk over so casually, she couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. She secretly cursed and blushed even more. Yang Dingtian stepped into the bath and started bathing with Mu Lianyi's help. It was strange. Mu Lianyi was originally filled with fear of the drums outside, but when she saw Yang Dingtian's leisurely manner, she gradually calmed down. Although you're the master and I'm a servant, I'm still a human. Mu Lianyi's hands rubbed Yang Dingtian's body. You're shameless, but I'm not. Stop acting like a pervert in front of me. Okay. Yang Dingtian closed his eyes and leaned comfortably on the bathtub. Mu Lianyi was even angrier. She pinched him and said, "Is this how a city lord should act? The enemy is already at the city gates. Instead of joining the army, you're lazily bathing here. Are you scared?" Yang Dingtian asked. Who's scared? At most, I'll just die, Mu Lianyi said. Anyway, I'd rather die than live like this. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but laugh. From your tone, it sounds like you've been bullied and living is worse than death. What are you laughing at? I'm serious, Mu Lianyi said. In the Mu clan docks, I'm a rich young lady. Here, I'm a servant. In the Mu clan docks, I'm with my father every day. Here, I can't even see him for half a month. In the Mu clan's docks, he lived happily every day, but here, he lived in fear every day. That's fine, but my dignity are being trampled on. Hearing Mu Lianyi's accusation, Yang Dingtian definitely wouldn't refute. In fact, she was the one who had asked to be a maid. Yang Dingtian had originally wanted her to focus on cultivation. Her body and talent were both very good. At this moment, a woman sneakily ran out of the house. It was Qin Mengli. She ran along the wall and ran back to her room naked. Because Jiao Jiao and Yan Yan had secretly thrown her clothes into the water, leaving nothing behind. The small building she lived in was a few dozen meters away. Other than Bao Bao, there was no other man in the entire valley. However, there were quite a number of women. Yan Yan and Jiao Jiao had decided to embarrass Qin Mengli once. Qin Mengli stuck close to the wall and ran back. When she went out, she rolled her eyes at Yang Dingtian. Not long after she ran out, Yang Dingtian heard Bao Bao gurgling, "Mimi, Mimi." Instantly, Qin Mengli was so embarrassed that she wanted to die. Usually, Bao Bao would wake up very late. Today, the sound of the huge human skin drum from the army of evil ways woke Bao Bao up. Bao Bao was so excited that he couldn't sleep anymore. He asked Dugu Aoshuang to get up and wandered outside. In the end, he met Aunt Qin Mengli. Father and son, neither of them is good, Qin Mengli said angrily. Then, she remembered that there was no man here at all. She didn't need to cover her vital parts. She just needed to cover her face. Therefore, she chose to cover her face and ran back to her small building. Then, a little girl's voice almost made her cry. "Mommy, Mommy, come and see. There's a naked auntie running outside." It was little Ning Ning. She stood at the window and shouted excitedly. Ning Ro came up with a red face and carried the little girl away. "Shimen, Yan Yan, Qin Jiao Jiao, the two of you wait for me." Qin Mengli rushed into her small house and shouted loudly. Originally, she thought that the sky wasn't bright yet and there wouldn't be anyone outside. Who knew that the sky wasn't bright today and everyone would be up? However, this way, the fear in the entire valley seemed to have been dispersed by something. Shameless adulterous couple. Mu Lianyi took the opportunity to pinch Yang Dingtian's back. Yang Dingtian was wearing the city lord's golden robe and a golden crown. He rode the demon eagle king but didn't fly. Instead, he ran out of the valley. At this moment, Cloud Sky Castle was in a state of panic. All the young disciples were no longer in the mood to practice martial arts. They gathered in groups of 3 to 5 and gathered in the square. Everyone's face was filled with fear and uneasiness. The old, young, women, and children of Cloud Sky City also instinctively gathered in the square. Everyone was woken up by the human skin giant drum of the Evil Way's army before dawn. Then, waves of fear drilled into their hearts and into their bones. They all instinctively gathered in the square, instinctively hugging each other for warmth and expelling their fear. At this moment, when they saw Yang Dingtian riding the demon eagle king over, everyone's expression suddenly changed as they swarmed over. City Lord Yang, can we win? City Lord, will the Evil Way's army come in? Everyone's faces were filled with fear and uneasiness. We can win, of course we can win. Yang Dingtian said with a smile, if nothing unexpected happens, the battle will end around noon tomorrow. Wait a moment, there will be a mission. Your mission is to cook under Madam's lead. There is a battle ahead, so the food supply will be tight. You have to contribute. Yes, everyone replied loudly. Of course, although there were hundreds of thousands of soldiers to eat, they didn't need to cook. Yang Dingtian just gave them something to do. When they were free, the fear would ferment more easily. Then, Yang Dingtian smiled and rode across the square, not seeming to be in a hurry. Most of it was knowledge about production, the races of the entire chaotic continent, the Tiando League, the history of evil ways, and so on. Of course, there were no special schools. They found a hall, a board, and a relatively knowledgeable old man to teach them. Although it was very crude, it directly won the hearts of countless people. City Lord, we are not afraid. We are always ready to go to the city wall and fight the enemy to the end, a strong man said loudly. Good, it's good that you have such thoughts, Yang Dingtian said. However, we have enough troops. We don't need you to go to war. But after you work, you can join the militia. You are mainly to help maintain order in the city. You have to be careful of the enemy hiding in front of us and causing trouble. Yes. The strong man said loudly. I will immediately organize people. We definitely won't let the infiltrators succeed. That's right. In addition to the regular army, there was an astronomical number of militia in Cloud Sky City. These people were not used to fight, nor were they even reserves. They were mainly used to maintain order and discover enemy spies. Many spies had entered Cloud Sky City. Some were directly sent by the Evil Ways. Some were from the World Society, some were from the Northwest Qin City, and some were from the Divine Weapons Villa. Logically speaking, this was like throwing dozens of grains of sand into hundreds of kilograms of rice. It was very difficult to discover. However, Yang Dingtian started an unprecedented war of the people in the chaotic continent. He let the people guarantee each other in dozens or hundreds of people and establish an incomparably huge militia. These spies were almost directly uprooted. Just like that, Yang Dingtian walked more than 200 miles unhurriedly, causing the panicked and fearful crowd to gradually calm down. The last 30 miles were almost all military camps. Instantly, the atmosphere changed and became incomparably solemn. Almost all of the military camps were empty. This was because all the troops had rushed to the city wall defense line. Yang Dingtian suddenly flew toward the city wall at full speed. He arrived at the city wall. Instantly, the 100-mile city wall was armed to the teeth. The 100,000 troops were all distributed on the 100-mile city wall. They were densely packed and couldn't be seen at a glance. In addition to weapons, each of the 100,000 troops had a strong bow on their back and dozens of arrows. Of course, most of them weren't archers. However, The enemy was like a vast ocean. They didn't need to aim at all. Behind the city wall, in the square behind every city gate, rows of cavalry were neat and tidy, ready to charge at any time. In addition to the Demon Dragon army, there were nearly 25,000 cavalry in Cloud Sky City. In addition to the Black Blood Cavalry and Cloud Sky City's cavalry, there were also cavalry from the vassals and nearly 10,000 cavalry from the World Society South. The 25,000 cavalry formed more than a dozen square formations. It was still a black mass. The 3,500 Demon Dragon cavalry were divided into two groups, separated by dozens of miles. Behind the two city gates, they were like two sharp swords. At this moment, the sound of the human skin drum was already very loud. It was deafening and made one's liver and gallbladder shatter. The horses of the 25,000 cavalry had already begun to tremble in fear. Although the cavalry also felt fear, they still quietly comforted their mounts. As for the 3,500 Demon Dragon mounts, they were calm and composed. Their bodies were filled with soaring battle intent and there wasn't the slightest bit of fear. Yang Dingtian suddenly soared into the sky, crossed the city wall, and looked into the distance. In the shocking sound of the drum, the entire earth was trembling. The army of evil ways was advancing. Countless footsteps were knocking on the ground. But how many troops and how many people were there? It was completely unclear. Because in the distance, there was dust soaring into the sky as if a sandstorm was sweeping over. He couldn't see how many troops there were. He could only see that in 100 miles, there was dust and sandstorm soaring into the sky. The army of evil ways was like an otherworldly beast, summoning wind and rain as it swept over. The army of evil ways was completely enveloped by the sandstorm and couldn't be seen clearly. Yang Dingtian landed in the center of the city wall. Song Chunhua, Qin Huayu, Zhu Hongxue, and Shimen Lai, the four most important officers of Cloud Sky City, all bowed to greet him. Yang Dingtian nodded, came to the center of them, and continued to look into the distance. At this moment, the flying mounts circling in the air flew towards the city wall and shouted, "The army of evil ways is 80 miles away." That's right. At this moment, the army was still 80 miles away from Cloud Sky City. But they could already hear the sound of huge drums and earth-shaking footsteps. Put 100 basins of water on the city wall. Yang Dingtian said. Yes. Soon, 100 basins of water were placed on the city wall. Boom 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 boom, along with the sound of the human skin drum and the sound of countless footsteps hitting the ground. These 100 basins of water kept rippling and shaking. After a period of time, the flying mounts in the air reported again, "The army of demons is 60 miles away from Cloud Sky City." At this moment, the water in the basins was about to jump out. After a while, the flying mounts in the air reported again, "The army of demons is 50 miles away from Cloud Sky City." At noon, the flying mounts in the air reported, "The army of demons is 30 miles away from Cloud Sky City." The army of demons is 20 miles away from Cloud Sky City. Immediately after, suddenly, a loud roar broke through the clouds. The water in the 100 basins suddenly surged up by half a foot. Bang! Then, there was another loud sound, as if countless giant hammers were hitting the ground in unison. Then, the sandstorm in the distance stopped moving forward. The army of evil ways stopped when they were 20 miles away from Cloud Sky City. Then, the sandstorm that filled the sky gradually dissipated. The army of evil ways gradually revealed its true appearance. Even though Yang Dingtian was already mentally prepared, he still couldn't help but gasp. The hundreds of thousands of soldiers of Cloud Sky City even instinctively felt a chill in their bodies and then leaned back. It was as if the visual impact of the army of evil ways was already like an incomparably huge aura that pushed them back. This scene had never been seen before. Whether it was in the movies on Earth or in the reality of the chaotic world, they had never seen such an earth-shattering scene. It turned out that when hundreds of thousands of soldiers gathered together, it was actually so huge. Covering the sky and covering the earth, it was boundless, like a vast ocean. At a glance, there was a black mass everywhere, and there was no end to it at all. It was truly difficult for birds to cross. If it was 10,000 people in a square formation, there were actually 60 to 70 square formations in the first 20 miles of Cloud Sky City. In other words, the army of evil ways that came this time wasn't 450,000, but 600,000 to 700,000. Perhaps it was because of the ambiguous attitude of Qiu Wanjia of the Eastern Legion that a portion of the expeditionary army from Zhongzhou directly joined the Southern Legion to go up north. Therefore, the army of enemies at the gate was a total of 600,000 to 700,000. An army of 600,000 to 700,000 seemed to be densely packed with soldiers for dozens to hundreds of miles. It was as if these soldiers were enough to completely drown the entire Cloud Sky City. Yang Dingtian could clearly feel that the 100,000 soldiers on the Cloud Heaven City had instantly turned cold. Although they had already mentally prepared themselves, when the army of hundreds of thousands was really placed in front of them, that feeling of shock and fear was still like a ferocious giant beast pressing down on them. It was irresistible. The commander of the Southern Legion wasn't Ning Wuming or Qin Chichi, but the Sky Phoenix Pavilion Master, Leng Yanmei. This cold and ferocious woman. From 20 miles away, she saw the city walls of Cloud Sky City, which was close to 100 miles, and her heart still trembled. In just over a month, the people of Cloud Sky City had actually built such a miraculous 100 miles of city walls. It was undeniably shocking. However, all of this was useless. In the eyes of Leng Yanmei, this 100 miles of city walls was completely vulnerable. Under the attack of the hundreds of thousands of soldiers behind her, the entire Cloud Sky City instantly collapsed. She even felt that it was ridiculous. To actually send out hundreds of thousands to millions of soldiers to attack a small Cloud Sky City was simply too ridiculous. Although the political significance of this was the most important, she still felt that it was too ridiculous and overestimated Yang Dingtian. A mere Cloud Sky City only needed a few tens of thousands of people, and it was already enough to exterminate it. From 20 miles away, Leng Yanmei saw Yang Dingtian and said with disdain, "A mantis trying to stop a chariot." In the center of the army of evil ways, there was an incomparably huge beast carriage. There were more than a dozen rhinoceros beasts pulling it, and it was like a moving palace. Leng Yanmei came to the front of the palace and said, "Young madam, what should we do?" Qin Chichi's voice came from the palace. "Demon Wolf Army, come out in full force, kill all the ants on the city walls, and eat their meat." "Yes," Leng Yanmei said. Leng Yanmei raised the army flag and waved it fiercely. Suddenly, the human skin giant bones in front of the flag, under the beating of the huge man-eating beasts, let out a shocking sound. Boom 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 boom. It was really a shocking sound, deafening, almost making people's hearts explode, and all the blood vessels were about to burst open. The 100,000 soldiers on the city walls almost instinctively trembled, trembling. Then, there was a mournful wolf howl. Then, the entire earth trembled, as if countless thunderbolts were hitting the ground. Then, a black tide rushed out from the army of evil ways. It was as fast as lightning. Innumerable. The sound of hitting the ground was really like thunder. Bang 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 bang, the 100 basins of water on the city walls began to jump, splashing up a foot. The silver basins filled with water began to tremble violently. Looking at the surging black tide, Yang Dingtian's eyes opened wider and wider. Then, he saw that the ground dozens of miles was densely packed with the enemy's demon wolf cavalry. This lineup was 10 times more than the Demon Wolf Cavalry's surprise attack a few days ago. Song Chunhua was the commander of the King of Cavalry. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but turn his head and ask, "How many Demon Wolf Cavalry are there?" Song Chunhua's face was pale, and he panted hurriedly, "No less than 20,000. More than 20,000 Demon Wolf Cavalry." It was really more than 10 times more than the previous surprise attack. Yang Dingtian had once expected that there might be more than 10,000 demon wolf cavalry in the army of evil ways. However, he never thought that there would be 20,000. And the demon dragon army only estimated that they could defeat more than 10,000 demon wolf cavalry, but they didn't dare to say that there were more than 20,000. The entire Dongli Grasslands demon wolf army didn't exceed 30,000. Could it be that they were going all out this time? The 20,000 demon wolf army, under the crazy charge, instantly covered 100 miles of ground. With the power of shocking thunder, they surged over. At a speed of more than 500 miles per hour, they whistled over. Qin Huayu stepped forward and whispered, "Sect Master, we only have 3,500 demon dragon army, can we win? Can we win?" Yang Dingtian didn't know either. He sat on the demon eagle king and flew to the front of the demon dragon army. He slowly pulled out his sword and waved it forward. "Demon dragon army, attack!" "Yes!" The 3,500 demon dragon army shouted in unison. Rumble. The two huge city gates suddenly opened. The 3,500 demon dragon army, divided into two teams, rushed out like two sharp swords. Hu, Yang Dingtian's demon eagle king suddenly soared into the sky and flew out of the city, following the demon dragon army's back. More than 20,000 demon wolf army covered the sky and earth. And the 3,500 demon dragon army were just two lonely sharp swords. Looking from the sky, it formed a sharp visual contrast. The demon dragon army's black shadows were less than 1/10 of the opponents. They seemed incomparably weak, as if they were about to be completely devoured by the demon wolf army in an instant. A short distance of more than 10 miles. The two overlords of the land rushed at a speed of more than 500 miles per hour. Suddenly, the two black shadows approached at lightning speed. 10 miles. 8 miles. 5 miles. 3 miles. The four commanders of the demon dragon army were all at the front of the team. Looking at the endless demon wolf army in front of them, looking at the incomparably ferocious and huge demon wolf demon cavalry. Everyone lowered their bodies and urged their horses to gallop. Countless demon wolf army waved the huge swords in their hands. And the demon dragon army still didn't unsheath their swords, quietly hibernating. Getting closer and closer. Getting closer and closer. 300 meters. 200 meters. 100 meters. 50 meters. 30 meters. 10 meters. Unsheathing. The 3,500 demon dragon warriors suddenly unsheathed their swords. In an instant, Yang Dingtian used the blood black gold and Mo Long's claw, plus the blood demon sword that was modified by the heaven and earth mystic fire. It was like a steel forest, piercing the sky. 3,500 blood demon swords. Suddenly, it emitted a murderous aura. In front, all the demon wolf army shook violently and instinctively shrank, almost trembling with fear. Boom! Two trump card armies. One army was 3,500. One army was 25,000. Instant collision. Like Mars hitting Earth. Like the collision of nuclear bombs. In an instant, it exploded violently. Chapter 483. Pavilion Master Leng, how long will it take to kill the Devil Dragon army? Qin Chichi asked. Not more than 15 minutes, Leng Yanmei said. However, in the previous surprise attack, 2,000 against 2,000, the monstrous wolf legion was completely wiped out, Qin Chichi said. But half of the Devil Dragon army died, Leng Yanmei said. The demon wolf army has more explosive power and is more ferocious and cruel. As for the Devil Dragon army, they have more endurance and glory. However, in the face of 10 times the difference in numbers, any kind of willpower and endurance is useless. At the moment of contact, the 3,000 Devil Dragon army will be completely torn apart and devoured. They won't have any chance. Leng Yanmei said, therefore, in less than 15 minutes. Yang Dingtian's few thousand Devil Dragon army will be completely annihilated. The Demon Wolf army will not have more than 1,000 casualties. Looking at the two overlords of the continent getting closer, Yang Dingtian became more and more nervous. In the end, he almost couldn't breathe. The 100,000 soldiers on the city wall were so nervous that they were twitching. The 3,500 Devil Dragon army was Cloud Sky City's absolute trump card. If they lost the first battle, Cloud Sky City wouldn't be able to stop the enemy's 20,000 Demon Wolf army. If they lost the first battle, Cloud Sky City would lose completely. However, could they win? The 100,000 soldiers on the city wall didn't have any confidence. This was because the disparity was too great. The 3,500 Devil Dragon army soldiers didn't even seem to be 1% of the enemy's Demon Wolf army. The enemy's Demon Wolf army was truly overwhelming, capable of destroying heaven and earth. Bang! An earth-shattering sound. The two overlords of the continent instantly clashed fiercely. The hearts of everyone in Cloud Sky City were about to burst out of their chests. The first battle between the righteous and evil armies had officially begun. Everyone was incomparably afraid to see that scene. The incomparably small Devil Dragon army would be instantly devoured. However, it seemed that this scene would definitely happen. Every warrior in the Devil Dragon army looked at the overwhelming Demon Wolf army. Their hearts were filled with the will to die and tragic feelings. Even if he were to die, he would kill a few more enemies. Even if he were to die, he would die a heroic death. Even though Yang Dingtian had changed all of their outfits, their swords, armors, and battering rams were all coated with a layer of bloody black gold. However, the number of enemies was simply too great. With a layer of bloody black gold on their equipment, so what if their combat strength was increased by 30%? There were simply too many enemies. However, the Devil Dragon army was not afraid of death. Even if they were completely annihilated, they would fight to the end. After the four commanders pulled out their swords, they let out roars that soared into the sky. Kill! More than 3,000 blood demon swords emitted a murderous aura. Then, the 3,500 members of the Devil Dragon army charged towards the demonic wolf army ferociously. Bang 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 bang, the expected pain didn't come. The expected death did not come. The expected tearing did not appear. The blood demon sword in each of their hands was like the light of hell, directly tearing apart the opponent's incomparably sturdy shields, directly breaking the opponent's terrifyingly sharp giant sabers, and directly tearing apart the opponent's sturdy armor. In the end, the ferocious giant demonic wolf army was instantly torn in half by the blood demon sword. It turned into blood that splattered all over the sky. The blood demon armor in front of the Devil Dragon army instantly smashed the ferocious giant demonic wolf army's armor into pieces. Its skull was torn apart, and its entire body was instantly smashed into pieces, turning into minced meat. Then, under the Devil Dragon army's incomparably shocked and astonished gaze, the 3,500 members of the Devil Dragon army crushed over just like that. That's right, they crushed and plowed over just like that. There was no resistance at all. Everything that blocked the blood demon sword was torn apart, and all of them were smashed into pieces. Everything that stood in the way of the demonic dragon mount was crushed into pieces and trampled into a pile of meat paste. The Devil Dragon army plowed over just like that. How could this be? How could this be? The Devil Dragon army was completely massacring. A few days ago, the Devil Dragon army and the demonic wolf army were fighting 2,000 against 2,000. Although the Devil Dragon army obtained the final victory, the Devil Dragon army was at a disadvantage in the instant of close combat. This was because the demonic wolf army's explosive power was too strong. More than 60% of the Devil Dragon army's deaths occurred in the instant of the collision. 3,500 clashed with 25,000. The Devil Dragon Army's warriors were already prepared for the most tragic and bloody deaths. But the result was actually one-sided. All the warriors of the Devil Dragon Army immediately had their gazes on their swords. The treasured swords that City Lord Yang Dingtian had modified for them were actually so powerful. They were so powerful that it was completely unimaginable. The enemy's weapons and armor were completely unable to block them. Therefore, the Devil Dragon Army, which should have been at a disadvantage, was actually completely invincible. And most importantly, after the swords were unsheathed, the incomparably ferocious and bloodthirsty demonic wolf army, who didn't fear death, actually trembled in fear and instinctively retreated. Wherever the blood demon sword passed, the wild beast's first reaction wasn't to fight, but to dodge. Since when did wild beasts become afraid? Of course, it was because of the blood demon sword's evil spirit. After forging these blood demon swords, Yang Dingtian immediately discovered that they were filled with the evil spirit's evil spirit. Therefore, Yang Dingtian immediately sheathed these treasured swords. When he gave the equipment to the Devil Dragon Army's warriors, he ordered that no one was allowed to unsheath their swords. They had to unsheath their swords at the instant before the collision. The purpose was to accumulate the evil spirit. It was to accumulate the evil spirit to the extreme and then release it instantly. The power was indeed incomparably shocking. Yang Dingtian, who was on the city wall, was completely stunned. When the enemy sent out 25,000 demonic wolf mounts, he made the most optimistic and pessimistic estimates in his heart. However, even if he multiplied his optimism by 10 times, he still didn't expect this scene. He felt that in the instant of collision, at least 1/3 of the Devil Dragon Army would die. Next, it was a battle of wills. Under glory and willpower, the Devil Dragon Army would become stronger as they fought. The most optimistic estimate was that in the face of 25,000 demonic wolf mounts, they might win, but the Devil Dragon mounts would almost be completely annihilated. Moreover, this was based on the fact that the demonic wolf army began to flee after seeing the large-scale casualties. This was the rule of wild beasts. They were bloodthirsty and didn't know what fear was. However, once a large number of their kind died, they would begin to flee. Their fearlessness would also turn into complete fear. Yang Dingtian really didn't expect that the situation would be like this. It was actually a one-sided massacre. The 3,500 demon dragon warriors had actually managed to crush them. Everywhere they passed, they were crushed into pieces and turned into meat paste. Where was the cruelty and bloodthirstiness of the demonic wolf army? Where was their terrifying explosive power? Why did they all disappear? Soon, Yang Dingtian found the reason. It was evil spirit. The Devil Dragon Army's treasured swords had killed countless people. They originally had evil spirit. Then, this evil spirit was instantly magnified by the bloody black gold's incomparably powerful energy aura. Finally, it was magnified again by the extremely terrifying demonic spirit aura. Then, it was completely sealed in the scabbard. When the battle began, more than 3,000 demonic blood swords were unsheathed. Suddenly, an evil spirit surged into the sky. Humans could still rely on glory and willpower to avoid the mental impact of this evil spirit. However, wild beasts couldn't do it. Therefore, the demonic wolf army instinctively dodged. Therefore, it became a one-sided massacre. The 100,000 people on the city wall looked at the scene in front of them and were first completely shocked. They looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. More than 3,000 Devil Dragon Army, facing the demonic wolf army that was nearly 10 times their size, was actually a one-sided massacre. Then, cheers and roars like a tide. Long live! Long live! Long live City Lord Yang Dingtian! Long live the Devil Dragon Army! At this time, Leng Yanmei's entire body was trembling. She looked at everything in front of her in disbelief. This is impossible. This is impossible. Even the most absurd nightmare wouldn't happen in front of her. With an 8 times difference in numbers, they should have instantly devoured the opponent and killed the entire Devil Dragon army in 15 minutes. However, the reality was actually a one-sided massacre. How could this be? How could this be? Leng Yanmei's entire body was completely cold. What's going on? Qin Chichi said lightly. Our demonic wolf army is being slaughtered. They don't have the slightest ability to resist. Leng Yanmei hissed. Nonsense, how is this possible? Qin Chichi said hoarsely. Really, I also don't dare to imagine. How could this be? Our demonic wolf army has no killing intent. They are all hiding. Leng Yanmei said hoarsely. Suddenly, a black startled bird flew into the sky and looked down at the situation. This startled bird could become Qin Chichi's eyes. After a long time, Qin Chichi said lightly, Yang Dingtian is crazy. He used all the bloody black gold to modify the Devil Dragon army's weapons and armor. I also felt that these weapons contained the killing intent of a 1,000-year-old devil spirit. No wonder, no wonder. Then can the situation be reversed? Leng Yanmei said. Yang Dingtian's spending is really shocking. Doesn't he know that the value of these tens of thousands of bloody black gold has already surpassed the Devil Dragon army? Qin Chichi said in disbelief, reversal. We just have to wait for the killing intent of these blood demon swords to dissipate. As long as the killing intent dissipates, it will be time for the demonic wolf army to counterattack. Massacre, massacre, massacre. The Devil Dragon army was running crazily. They were like killing machines, crazily crushing and crazily massacring. They didn't need to wave their swords. They only needed to rush over, trample over, and stab over. The demonic wolf army wasn't being killed by dozens. It wasn't hundreds of them being killed. It was thousands of them being killed. In less than 15 minutes. The demonic wolf army was killed by over 10,000 people. The ground within dozens of miles was covered in blood, flesh, and severed limbs. However, the 4 commanders of the Devil Dragon army were shocked to find that the killing intent of the blood demon swords in their hands was getting weaker and weaker. Once the killing intent dissipated, the demonic wolf army would no longer hide. They would fight head-on. At this moment, the demonic wolf army still had more than 10,000 soldiers. Orders. 5,000 demonic wolf cavalry stay where they are. They will be used as cannon fodder to deplete the killing intent of the Devil Dragon army. 10,000 demonic wolf army will retreat 10 li and get into formation. They will wait for the final battle with the Devil Dragon army. Qin Chichi ordered. Yes. Immediately, the dozens of flags of the demonic wolf army started waving. Then, a few hundred wolf horns started blowing their orders. A few minutes later, the 10,000 demonic wolf army quickly turned around and retreated. The remaining 5,000 stood in front of the Devil Dragon army, allowing them to kill and deplete the killing intent. City Lord, Qin Chichi has plotted. Song Chunhua said. Yang Dingtian nodded. Of course, he saw it. The 5,000 demonic wolf warriors were left as cannon fodder to deplete the killing intent. The 10,000 demonic wolf army retreated and waited for the final battle. However, there was no other way now. I believe that even without the killing intent, our Devil Dragon army can still win against the 10,000 demonic wolf army. Yang Dingtian said. The Devil Dragon army was still slaughtering. However, the killing intent of their blood demon swords was getting weaker and weaker. After it decreased to a certain extent. Suddenly, the demonic wolf army was no longer afraid. They no longer hid and started to fight the Devil Dragon army head-on. However, there were less than 1,000 demonic wolf army left. 15 minutes later. There were less than 1,000 demon wolves left, and all of them were killed. However, the Devil Dragon army had already suffered some casualties. Previously, when they were filled with killing intent, they faced 25,000 and slaughtered 14,000 without any casualties. In the end, when the killing intent was depleted, there were casualties against 1,000 demonic wolf warriors. Although the casualties were very small. At this moment, the 10,000 demonic wolf cavalry had already formed a sharp knife formation. They were restless and were ready to fight. Young madam, the cavalry of the eastern and western armies have already arrived. They are less than 100 miles away from the battlefield. Leng Yanmei suddenly said. Yang Dingtian's miraculous performance destroyed 100 suspension bridges. Qin Wanqiu very tacitly stopped advancing east. As for the eastern army led by Qiu Wanjie, they were ambushed in Sky Thunder City and their son was captured. They also very tacitly stopped advancing. They delayed for 3 days. Evil ways were used. Qin Wanqiu's 2 sons and 3 daughters suddenly exploded and died. A plague appeared in the northwest Qin city's territory. In a short period of time, more than 100,000 people died. Qin Wanqiu felt a bone-piercing pain. Then, he had no choice but to deploy 3,000 flying mounts to transport the Western Army across the abyss and into Cloud Sky City's territory. Of course, he delayed for 3 days for Yang Dingtian. But he also paid a huge price. After Qin Wanqiu's Western Army advanced east, Qiu Wanjie couldn't do it alone. He also used the shortest amount of time to open up a tunnel for the Eastern Army to enter Cloud Sky City. At this moment, the cavalry of the Eastern and Western armies finally arrived at the battlefield. Their infantry troops were 300 miles away from Cloud Sky City. How many of them are there in total? Qin Chichi asked. Qin Wanqiu's Western Army cavalry, 150,000. Qiu Wanjie's Eastern Army cavalry, 130,000. Leng Yanmei said. Qin Chichi said, order them to enter the battlefield immediately and participate in the battle. Yes. Leng Yanmei said. Then, dozens of flying mounts flew in the east and west direction to convey the order to Qin Wanqiu and Qiu Wanjie. City Lord, there is a message from the sky. The cavalry of the eastern and western armies have arrived. They are less than 100 miles away from the battlefield. Jiao Liao quickly reported. Yang Dingtian said, send 2 messengers to Qin City Lord Qin Wanqiu and Divine Weapons Manor Lord Qiu Wanjie. Stop and see who wins first before making a decision. Yes. Jiao Liao said. Wait. Yang Dingtian said, bring Qiu Yiming here. Yes. A moment later, Qiu Yiming was brought up. The handsome and confident young Master Qiu was gone. He had lost a lot of weight. His eye sockets were sunken, and his eyeballs were bloodshot. His entire body was dark and swarthy, and he was wearing dirty and tattered clothes. Yang Dingtian frowned slightly and said, Qiu Yiming, did someone mistreat you? No. Qiu Yiming turned his head away from Yang Dingtian and said, Humph, who dares to mistreat me? Your father is here, leading hundreds of thousands of cavalry. He is 100 miles away. Help me send a message. Tell him to stop and see who wins first before making a decision, Yang Dingtian said. Qiu Yiming was shocked and said, You are not afraid that after I go back, I will immediately ask my father to lead the troops and kill them to avenge the humiliation of being captured? Yang Dingtian smiled and said, that is up to you. Then, with an incomparably complicated expression, Qiu Yiming sat on his flying mount and flew towards the east. As for the other messenger, he flew towards the west. Qin Wanqiu received Qin Chichi and Yang Dingtian's messengers almost at the same time. Qin Chichi wanted him to immediately send out the troops. Yang Dingtian wanted him to observe first and make a decision after seeing who wins the next battle. At this moment, Qin Wanqiu was floating 1,000 meters in the air. The gorgeous Qiu Ruhan was beside him. Husband, choose carefully. You don't have many children left, Qiu Ruhan said faintly and threateningly. Yes. Qin Wanqiu smiled as if there was no anger or hatred. Then, he fell into a dilemma. That's right, he really didn't have many children left. Evil ways killed more, and he wouldn't be able to bear it. He looked at the army of evil ways 100 miles away and the 10,000 demon wolf army that had gathered together. Then, he looked at the cloud heaven city 100 miles away and the 3,000 demon dragon army soldiers. The two trump card armies were 10 miles apart, quietly confronting each other and filled with explosive power. Qin Wanqiu clenched his teeth and shouted, "All troops, halt! Rest and reorganize." He chose to observe first and make a decision after seeing who wins or loses. Qiu Ruhan's expression changed as she said coldly, "I hope you won't regret it." Her voice was incomparably cruel. At the same time, Qiu Yiming appeared in front of Qiu Wanjie, causing the haggard Qiu Wanjie to be instantly shocked and overjoyed. Yang Dingtian actually let him return. He actually let the most important hostage return. Qiu Yiming went forward and said, "Father, Yang Dingtian asked me to pass you a message. Stop and observe first and make a decision after seeing who wins or loses." Qiu Wanjie saw his son's miserable state. There were a few scars on his face, and he was skinny, dark, and haggard. He didn't look like a human at all. He couldn't help but be furious. "Yang Dingtian, that bastard, abused you? I will tear him into pieces right now." "Abused?" "No," Qiu Yiming said. "Yang Dingtian, that bastard, pretended to be kind and righteous. He wouldn't abuse me." "Then, how did you become like this?" Qiu Wanjie's heart ached. "I have been working every day, digging tunnels and building city walls. But Yang Dingtian, that bastard, sealed my sea of qi and made me fall a few times. I was almost disfigured," Qiu Yiming said furiously. "Humph, just you wait. Father will take revenge for you," Qiu Wanjie said. "And, up to you." Qiu Yiming then turned and flew towards Cloud Heaven City. "Yiming? Where are you going?" Qiu Wanjie was shocked. "Back," Qiu Yiming said. "Back where?" Qiu Wanjie asked. "Back to Cloud Heaven City," Qiu Yiming said. "Father, I don't care what decision you make. But I promised Arai that I won't be a deserter. Even if I die, I will die in front of Cloud Heaven City. I will take my leave first." Then, under Qiu Wanjie's astonishment, Qiu Yiming flew back. Qiu Wanjie was shocked. Wasn't this brat scolding Yang Dingtian? Why did he go back and say that he wanted to live and die with Cloud Heaven City? At this moment, the woman beside Qiu Wanjie said coldly, "The crafty Yang Dingtian is the best at bewitching people's hearts. Manor Lord Qiu, everything will be decided by you. But you will bear all the consequences." If Yang Dingtian was here, he would definitely recognize this woman. The incomparably beautiful and exotic Wu Maji. Qiu Wanjie clenched his teeth and shouted, "All troops, stop. Rest and reorganize." Wu Maji's face turned cold. "Manor Lord Qiu, I hope you don't regret this." "Young madam, Qin Wanqiu's Western Legion Cavalry and Qiu Wanjie's Eastern Legion Cavalry have all stopped," Leng Yanmei said. "Old and crafty bastard, still trying to be a fence-sitter at this moment," Qin Chichi said coldly. "Alright, let's see who wins and who loses before deciding. Inject the demon blood into the demon wolf army. Then, advance courageously and kill the demon dragon army." "Yes," Leng Yanmei said. Then, she waved the flag and blew the wolf horn. Instantly, the warriors on the demon wolf mounts took out a tube of demon blood and injected it into the necks of the demon wolf mounts. Instantly, 10,000 demon wolves let out a strange howl. Instantly, black and red blood filled their huge beastly eyes. Their claws were growing rapidly, and their fangs were growing rapidly. Their forelegs suddenly became thick and strong. Their skin and flesh were torn apart inch by inch, dripping with blood. These 10,000 demon wolves instantly swelled by 30% and released an extremely ferocious and terrifying aura. After injecting the demon blood, the demon wolves were demonized. Once demonized, their speed, explosive power, and strength increased. All of them increased by 30% and above. Moreover, they would never back down. They would only charge forward courageously until they tore the enemy apart or were torn apart themselves. The demon wolves injected with the demon blood were destined to die regardless of victory or defeat. Qin Chi, even if she had to pay the price of the 10,000 demon wolves being annihilated, she had to completely destroy the demon dragon army and obtain victory. Then, Qin Wanqiu and Qiu Wanjie would immediately attack Cloud Sky City. Awoo! The 10,000 demon wolves 10 miles away let out demonic howls that made people tremble. The demon dragon warriors suddenly had a bad premonition in their hearts. The blood demon sword's killing intent had been used up, but there were still 10,000 enemies and all of them had demonized. No one knew the outcome of the battle and their fate. However, these 10,000 demon wolves were now emitting the aura of demons. Even if they were 10 miles away, they would still make people tremble. The first commander suddenly stepped out and shouted, "What do we demon dragon warriors rely on to fight? Is it killing intent? Tell us, what do we use to fight?" "Willpower and glory." Over 3,000 demon dragon warriors shouted. "That's right, we use willpower and glory to fight." The first commander shouted, "When we fight, do we care who the enemy is? Do we care how strong the enemy is?" "No." All the demon dragon warriors shouted. "That's right, we never care who the enemy is. We only care about where the enemy is." The first commander said, "Tell me, where is our enemy?" 10 miles ahead." "That's right, 10 miles ahead." The first commander said, "We, the demon dragon army, never care about who the enemy is. We only care about where the enemy is. Our enemy is right in front. Slaughter and death are our fates. For the glory of the demon dragon army, kill." The first commander roared and took the lead to charge out. Looking at the 10,000 demon wolves with demonic aura, he rode alone without any fear and charged forward. For the glory of the demon dragon army, kill. More than 3,000 members of the devil dragon army charged forward like lightning. Qin Chi's expression changed, Qin Wanqiu's expression changed, and Qiu Wanjie's expression changed. The first to charge was actually the demon dragon army. The 10,000 demon wolves were stunned at first. Then, they opened their blood-red eyes, opened their bloody mouths, and roared towards the sky. Kill! The 10,000 demon wolves charged out crazily. Their speed increased by 30% and was much faster than the demon dragon army. The two trump card armies charged once again. This time, it was a real collision. The demon blood sword of the demon dragon army no longer had any killing intent. Evil ways of the demon wolves had demonized and their strength had increased tremendously. This time, it was a real bloodthirsty battle. Two lightning bolts approached each other rapidly. In an instant. Bang! A loud sound echoed. A crazy collision, an unprecedented collision. Endless blood. Endless flesh and blood. Endless howls. The collision of blood and fire. The most naked, bloody, and cruel battle. The impact of speed. The impact of strength. Tearing, slashing, piercing, and colliding. The demon dragon army had always been fearless. The demon wolf army had already forgotten about fear. They weren't afraid of death at all. Even after demonizing, they had been chasing after death. Countless weapons were broken and countless armors were torn. In the sky above the battlefield, a bloody mist burst out. Countless fresh blood covered the entire battlefield. In an instant, the demon dragon army and demon wolf army were completely covered by the bloody mist. Everyone gradually couldn't see the battle situation clearly. Fresh blood covered everyone's vision. There were only roars and no screams. There were only the sounds of weapons clashing, flesh tearing, and armors exploding. In the bloody mist shrouding the battlefield, almost no one could see who was winning or losing. The only thing they could do was to wait for the battle to end. This was the most cruel battle. It was short, or maybe it was just a short moment. It was very long, or maybe it was like a year. Countless pairs of eyes stared at the bloody mist that filled the sky and listened to the heart-wrenching sounds of battle. They waited for the battle to end. The sounds gradually became softer. In the end, there was almost no sound at all. The sound of swords clashing was no more. The sound of armors exploding was no more. The terrifying roars were also no more. The entire battlefield was silent. However, the bloody mist was still dense and didn't thin at all. Everyone held their breaths and stared at the bloody mist, waiting for the final result. Now, all they had to do was wait. Whichever side walked out of the blood mist would be the final victor. Suddenly, a demon wolf slowly walked out of the bloody mist and appeared in everyone's vision. The one who walked out was a demon wolf demon rider. Suddenly, Cloud Sky City was ice-cold and filled with despair. In the Evil Way's army, there was an arrogant roar. "We won," Leng Yanmei said. "Oh." Qin Chichi said indifferently, 20,000 Golden Eagle Army, prepare to attack and give Cloud Sky City a fatal blow. Kill everyone inside. Yes. Leng Yanmei said. In the distance, Qiu Wanjia's expression changed and his body trembled. There is no choice. There is no choice. Yang Dingtian, don't blame me. In the sky 100 miles to the west, Qiu Ruhan was laughing wildly. Qin Wancho's face was ashen. He closed his eyes in extreme pain and muttered, Yang Dingtian, there are no miracles. There are no miracles in this world. That demon wolf demon rider slowly walked in the direction of Cloud Sky City. Whoosh! 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 Suddenly, a few bolts of lightning shot out from the bloody mist. Dozens of demon riders rushed out of the bloody mist and instantly killed that demon wolf, completely dismembering its corpse. Rumble. Immediately after, countless black dots and countless demon riders rushed out from the bloody mist. Dozens. Hundreds. Thousands. Thousands. Finally, the dense and majestic demon dragon army rushed out of the bloody mist. Their bodies were covered in blood and minced meat. Finally, the entire demon dragon army gathered and formed a battle formation. The first commander bowed in the direction of Cloud Sky City and said, reporting to my lord, the demon dragon army has completed the battle mission. We have exterminated the entire demon wolf army. Victory! Facing the army of 10,000 demonized demon wolves, the demon dragon warriors once again maintained their glory and obtained victory. In the sky above Cloud Sky City, there was an earth-shattering cheer. Long live! Long live the demon dragon army! The evil demon army's expression changed completely. They couldn't believe what was happening in front of them. Golden Condor Army, attack! Don't leave a single person, grass, or tree in Cloud Heaven City. Qin Chichi's voice was as cold as hell and was filled with killing intent. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.